Hello, hello, my darlings. How are we today? I literally just come back from getting tea and my chat has blown up. So let me have a look what is going on. How are we doing? Hello, everybody. I'm Nozomi, the Welsh Pandragon, and welcome to my little cove of Raven's Hollow for your regular Fright Friday. Joining me is my little zombunny up there on my head today. Hello, Owo, Elfie. How are you, darling? Thank you so much for stopping by and following. We are so happy to have you here. 2 months already, Scott? Thank you for resubbing for another month. That really means a lot. A whole 2 months already? That has gone so fast. Let's see. And Bestie, thank you, honey. 2 months. I really appreciate it. Hello, Kanik. How are you, sweetie? How are you doing, Canny? I hope you're okay. Oh, thank you, Elfie. That is super sweet. You're doing okay. I'm glad to hear. I really appreciate you stopping by to my stream today. I hope you like creepypastas. Yeah, I've added a couple new little redeems as well in the jellies. So that's gonna be fun. I'm super also excited for Sunday, which is Welsh Folklore Day. I got finished preparing all that for tomorrow, for Sunday, which I'm super excited about. Like, you have no idea the excitement I have for sharing my culture with people. Ow, I nearly burnt my mouth on my tea. That is too hot. I hope you're all doing well. Oh, Scott is up again for the top spot for the gift subbing. It is reset again. Oh no, that means Inge might come around. We're not prepared for that. And the Biddy Gremlin. You're allergic to biddies? Thank you for the 500 biddies. Scott, I appreciate it. As always. You like to fill my biddy cup? Little Ghost Nozo is always happy. Has it already been 2 months? I didn't think it was 2 months at all. I actually thought it was like less. Like a month and a half maybe? That is like really cool. But yes, I have added a head pat redeem now, which y'all are gonna abuse, I know. And another song redeem is somewhere in there too. So that's gonna be fun. Oh, I'm just so excited. But yes, we have some new lovely jellies in my server today, which I'm super happy about. Are you gonna be jellies? Or are you gonna be little gremlins like Scott today? And for I'm terrible at spelling today. Oh my goodness. So for all my new and old friends, you'll find all my thingy mobobs there. I'm still figuring out how to stick my Twitter back on there. The Streamlabs is, you know, as it is. Oh, my dog has got the zoomies. Head pats. Oh, you'll be in for a treat, because not only does Nozomi get head pats, but also Zombunny gets head pats. Thank you for the head pats, Lion. I appreciate it, and so does Zombunny, my little grumpy bun bun. I finally figured out how to do the head pats, so like I'm super happy for those. Super happy. Oh, don't worry. Once Bestie gets to affiliate, I'm gonna flood them with bits and subs as well. Oh, yes, exactly, Scott. Bestie deserves all the love. Just hit 50, and I'm so proud of Bestie. Let me see. Where be Bestie? There she is. Let me just do this. Where be she? For all my other lovely friends, please go and give little Bestie Eggy some love. They've just hit 50 on Twitch. I'm so proud. Which means debut soon. And I cannot be more prouder. I'm all about supporting my friends. And you will get lots and lots of support. Get loved on, Bestie. But yes, well done, Bestie, on hitting your 50 followers. I'm so proud of you. Hope you know that. But we have some fun stories today. As you know, it's another Fright Friday, which means creepypastas. And I'm using the bookmark that Scott was nice enough to get for me off my throne. It's so nice. Yes. But how have we all been? Have we been having an amazing Friday? Did you have a good Thursday? Because I didn't see you pretties on Thursday. I was having a nice chill time at home. You're good. I'm super glad to hear that, Scott. We had a good time in VC on yesterday, so that was fun. Scott, if you see Z hanging around, you need to tell him to get his ass here. He will die. You know, I found people apparently enjoy my voice, especially when Welsh is concerned, so that's nice. And Yeah, that's why I added a BRB need to quick DM to someone about a thing. Of course, Scott, that is very fine indeed. Always fine. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I see Mr. Inge lurking. I'm in fear for my life now. Hello to my little lurkers in the back, having a listen in. I appreciate you all. You're all my precious, precious jelly babies. Mr. Dooge, we're not going to have a bark session today, please. My Dooge cannot let me stream in peace. He's a silly Dooge. Go and lie down, Mr. Isaac, please. Thank you. Good boy. Are you all ready for a lovely, lovely story today? I have quite a few. I am the owner of both of the Creepypasta collections, books that were edited and brought out by Mr. Creepypasta, which is a collection of stories that he had. But once a week, I'm going to be, doing a bit of storytelling for people. So if you have any stories you've written yourself, you'd like to share, by all means, feel free to drop them my way, and I would happily read them out too for you. Because I am an avid writer, and I enjoy reading other people's works too. So, and you can send me any type of writing, including fan fictions. I will read them on stream, as long as they're okay. You can do smut and stuff like that. That's fine. But as long as it's legal smut, All right. Are we all sitting comfortably, or are we in a comfortable place? We got our snacks. Something to drink. I got my tea. The cry myth knows of me does not have tea for a stream. But yes, the first story we're going to go and read today is called Proxy by Aaron Shotwell. Why does the colour blue look blue? Why does a rose smell sweet? What is happiness? What is pain? Why can the taste of a fine wine summon unpleasant memories? Truth be told, I would have been perfectly content to die not knowing these things. It would have been a mercy. I think we've all heard the words, there are fates worse than death, at least once. But until now, I can't say that I truly understood their gravity. Honestly, I can't say that any of us do, until it's too late. We romanticize this immaterial ghost between our ears, a thing that is as subjective as we think it isn't. It's all we have. It's all we are. So we guard it fiercely unto the bitter end. We create stories of life after death, of loving gods and benevolent guardian angels. And we do so to appease our subconscious knowledge of the horrifying truth. There is no soul, no afterlife. Eternity marches on without you, because you are ultimately nothing more than an inelegant knot of biological wiring. And when that knot of wires is locked safely away in your skull, toiling away in the dark and informed only by your senses, it's safe to believe in angels. It's safe to believe a God will deliver you from evil. But when they put that fucking thing in my head, that barnacle on my sanity, I lost that privilege. I don't know who I am anymore. My innermost thoughts and feelings are as fake as this room I keep waking up in. I never knew that a brief life and a swift death could be such blessings. But as with everything else, we don't truly appreciate what we have until it's taken away. And we have a intersection of text. current date/time is based on the current system. Time is 0. The 7th of the 6th, 2078, 11:13 am. Hello, patient 0001. I, Subject Alpha. Welcome to the Nanosurgeon Hub AI and Virtual Interface. My name is Tesla. Please relax while I test the frontal lobe cognitive interpretation matrix. It started with what was, at the time, one of the happiest moments of my life. It was my grandfather's 4th birthday party, my granddaughter's 4th birthday party, my little sweet pea. We held it at a public park on a beautiful summer day. We had clowns, ponies, a bouncy house, and colourful balloons as far as the eye could see. It may have been a bit overboard for a 4-year-old, but I gladly paid for it. I was getting older and was often sick. I would feel my own mortality, and I just wanted to spoil my granddaughter while I still had the chance. The whole gesture was rendered meaningless the moment she blew the candles out and looked up to meet my eyes. I was so happy for her, so charmed by that little cherub face of hers, that I didn't notice. The right half of my face had gone numb and started to sag, and when she saw it, she screamed. Start. FLCIM. Int main file P file. P file equals F open frontal lobe.exe. Tesla. Complete. Please try to speak. ERR226. FLCIM dissonant. Collaboration required. Include stdioh. Include stdlib.h. Int main. Int argc char argv. While f gets path size of path -1 fp null. Print path. Processing, calibrating. Thank you for your patience. Please repeat. P0001. Thirsty. Nurse call protocol. Acknowledged. Paging nurse. Her scream was the last thing I could remember before waking, up on a stretcher, being wheeled into that god-forsaken hospital room. If I had known what they were about to do to me, I would have never consented. But my daughter held power of attorney. I wasn't in possession of my senses, and it was all she could do to save my life. But I don't blame her for this. She couldn't have known. Current date and time based on current system. The time and date is now 07/06/2078, 6:22 p.m. Tesla. Initial diagnostic complete. Left brain stroke. Extensive damage to language center. Aphasia of angular and fusiform gyri. Substantial degeneration of brainstem function. Severe motor function impairment. Following this briefing, Type 01 nano-injection will survey local synaptic networks and estimate time of repair, beginning with the restoration of speech. Please follow all diagnostic prompts between repair sessions to assess restorative progress. Confirm repair schedule. P0001. Yes. Tesla. Acknowledged. Administering serotonin injection. Please relax while local synaptic analysis is in process. I encourage you to tell me about your day. This will help me to isolate the affected areas of your brain and expedite the repair process. P00. 01. Want no day? How you think my day had fucking stroke? Tesla, it was not my intention to offend you, Subject Alpha. Please refrain from overexerting yourself. Please relax. P0001. Anna. Your granddaughter, if my information is correct. Birthday. Today. 4 years. Scared. Shit out of her. My fault. This is not your fault, Subject Alpha. I am certain she will forgive you. Shouldn't see me like this. Scarred for her life. Cerebral analysis complete. First repair task set. Estimated duration 11 hours, 45 minutes. Let's get you better, for her sake. Confirm? Yes. Acknowledged. Administering melatonin and clopidogrel. Type 02 repair nanite injection in 30 seconds. Pleasant dreams, Subject Alpha. Nanomachine neurosurgery. It was an experimental method of treatment. They said it would revolutionize psychiatry and neurobiology forever. And I hated it from the moment it first spoke to me. If the word spoke is even an accurate descriptor. It was just a small nodule of polished chrome attached to my left temple, but it operated inside my brain. It made me hear and see things from within digitally fabricated illusions for the sake of communication. Having something so close to the source of your consciousness is more disturbing than you can possibly imagine. It can invade your soul, corrupt the very essence of who you are. You'd like to hope that your mind is the one thing definitely under your control. To lose that certainty is to question what it even means to have a self. The memory is hazy, but I remember them calling me a hero for being the first volunteer, praising my supposed bravery as they put the surgical drill to my skull, as if I had a choice. Good morning, Subject Alpha. You will be pleased to know that the repair is progressing well. Ow, my hand. Please do not be alarmed at any muscular twitching. This is an automated process to test your motor functions, which should be substantially restored. 83% of brainstem damage has been repaired. How are you feeling? Nauseous. Feel like gonna hurl. Acknowledged. Administering Phenergan and diazepam. That should take the edge off. The tremors in your hands should cease momentarily. You will soon feel the same tremors in your legs, but do not be alarmed. Please be patient while the motor function test runs its course. Couldn't feel my legs last night. Walk again? Yes, within a few days. I have also noticed marked improvement in your speech recognition. Please read aloud the following sentence. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Brown. Thank you. Analyzing. Speech apraxia is still prominent in the granular cerebellum. Prioritizing Phase 2, repair schedule. Notice, your daughter and granddaughter will be visiting at 6 p.m. this evening. 6, but not ready. Not to worry, Phase 2 repairs will restore adequate speech functionality well before their arrival. Sound good, Jackie boy? And that's when it started. The horrifying descent into this torturous oblivion. Jackie boy, it sounded so familiar, the way that thing said it. Memories of childhood, spending all day playing in the forest with a friend, a nameless, faceless friend whom I loved like a brother, but that ghost of fondness came with a sense of guilt. What kind of friend forgets their best friend's name? And yet, something was wrong. Something, somehow. I knew that it was safer to forget, that I had forgotten for a good reason. It shook me to my core. My apologies. I seem to have caused you distress. Cerebral analysis suggests this name has an endearing connotation to you, and studies show patients report a consistently more pleasant and therapeutic experience when addressed informally. Would you prefer this interface to remain professional? Yes. Very good, Subject Alpha. Initiating Phase 2, repair schedule. Confirm? Yes. Acknowledged. Administering melatonin and clopidogrel. Type 6 repair nanite injection in 30 seconds. Pleasant dreams, Subject Alpha. Each time I went under, I could feel the scratching and tinkering of the nanites in my head, and the more they fidgeted with my synapses, the more I could feel something dark rising to the surface of my consciousness. Something forgotten. Something terrifying. A repressed memory clawing its way back with every synaptic bridge repaired. Connections that were deliberately broken to seal it away in the first place. I only wish I could have realised what was happening before it was too late. I might have said something to the nurse changing my IV drip as I stirred awake, but I was much too distracted by her chillingly unfamiliar face. Unfamiliar in a way I had only ever experienced once, somewhere deep in the memories that begged to remain forgotten. 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, but I saw no face, just a confounding, nonsensical smudge where a face should be. Wake up, Subject Alpha. Your visitors will be arriving shortly. Who was that? Have I met her before? Restoration of the language centre successful. That was Nurse Flanagan. She was with the personnel who brought you to your room. She also participated in the preliminary operation and connected you to this nanosurgeon interface. Why can't I remember her face? Another symptom of the aphasia, I'm afraid. Do you recognize any of these faces? And it showed me a slideshow of nightmares behind my very eyelids. A procession of faces pulled from my own memory, cascading faces that had belonged to my loved ones not 24 hours before. But had each not been accompanied by name, they would have been strangers. My blood ran cold as they scrolled by in a blur, each without a face that I could remember. My late mother, my daughter, my sweet pea Anna. I was reduced to tears of frustration as I failed to recognise each one. I had never felt so alone in my life. It was all I could do to keep a fake smile on my face for my baby girl's sake when they came to visit. That's a silly hat, Grandpa, she said with a smile. Hats are supposed to go on top of your head. I tried to muster a laugh, though I knew it would never compare to the genuine laugh she loved. Well, this silly hat's going to make your old grandpa all better, so don't you worry your pretty little head. I looked up and flashed my best fake smile to the stranger I used to call my daughter, but she wasn't so easily reassured. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, and to my shame, I felt nothing. Here, Grandpa, I saved the last piece of cake for you. I guarded it all night because I know you like chocolate. She passed me a Tupperware container with her biggest aren't you proud of me grin. Her mother nodded at me with a silent smile, unable to hold back the tears any longer. And I understood the message. Yes, he was saying to me, even on her special day, she could only think of you. It touched my heart, and I smiled for my first genuine smile of the night. Thank you, baby girl. We are watching Phase 3. Well, old Grandpa's getting sleepy. Well, old Grandpa's getting sleepy. The words came out of my mouth, but I wasn't saying them. We are watching. You two better get on home, so you can hurry up and come see me tomorrow. You two better get on home. You can hurry and come see me tomorrow, I laughed. The son of a bitch made me laugh while I was screaming inside. He was standing behind her, tall, sickly thin, and in the same black suit I remembered so well. For the longest time during my childhood, a horrible demon haunted my nightmares, but I could never remember its face, and now I understood why. He had no face to remember. He held me prisoner in my own mind, while he made me watch my granddaughter's precious smile melt away from her skull, along with her nose and her eyes. Through some twisted illusion, he made her a faceless freak just like him, a phantom of the little girl I loved. He stole her from me while she was still alive, and while I was still alive to witness it. I tried to call out, to do anything I could to get their attention, and I watched helplessly as that monster made me wish them a good night, all smiles and optimistic cheer. He shut me off from them and the rest of the world, forever. Hello, Jack. I missed you. I remember you. Yes? David, the camping trip. We were just kids. I said I would come back for you. You took him. You took him away. As I will take you, Jackie boy. As you will take Anna and bring her to me. He flooded my mind with images of his intent, tilting his head whimsically at me like a vindictive child burning ants with a magnifying glass. Tendrils of shadow bursting from behind him and smothering the hospital's room's fluorescent lights. He could control my every move, my every thought. He could make me see what he wanted me to see, make me feel endless pain. I could resist him, but eventually he would break me. The nanites made it easy. It all came rushing in so fast. A horrible memory long since forgotten. A dreadful future yet to come. I would be a slave. I would walk hand in hand with my little sweet pea. I would wear the mask of his followers, the same mask David's father wore that night, and standing in the same dark forest meadow where I watched it happen, I would hand her over to him, just as David's father had done. Just get out of here, Jackie boy. I'll be all right. Those were his last words to me, as he punctuated them with the familiar nickname he had used for me since the day we first met. He wasn't worried in the least. He trusted his father completely, knew that only good could come of being given to the White King, as his father referred to the faceless monstrosity standing before him. I was too young back then to understand what a cult was, or to know what would come of it, and I would have never imagined that the masked tribunals David told me about were in worship of this demon. He made it sound like an innocent camping trip in the woods. So when he invited me along one night, and that thing appeared to claim its sacrifice, I ran for my life. I pleaded for David to follow, but he wouldn't listen. Even as I ran blindly through the woods, I could feel its malicious will pierce my heart. It would never let me escape. Sooner or later, it would come for me again, and my childhood mind repressed it for the sake of my sanity. No! You won't use me for this. By some miraculous force of will, I managed to take control of my body again. Just long enough to grip the nanosurgeon nodule and violently tear it from my skull. I felt the shock of it kill me. I felt my life slip away as I tumbled to the cold floor covered in gore. And then, as if nothing had happened, I awoke again on the hospital bed. I awoke at 7:30 AM on the morning of July 7th, 2078, the morning after the first nanite injection. And I have awoken here at this very moment more times than I can count. I awaken here again each time I tear the hub from my head, right after it kills me. You see, he has taken away my sense of time and my grasp of reality, and I despair when I realise that he will continue to let me suffer these final hours again and again until I submit. For all I know, he has already taken control. Try as I might to escape the clutches of this parasite in my head, I fear that I have already done his will. I fear that this is all just an illusion to keep me prisoner, and that I have already delivered Anna to her fate. And in time, some unfathomable eternity from now, I suspect I'll even forget about that, when nothing is real anymore, because the colour blue isn't really blue. Like, the last remnants of what I used to be, it's all in my head, and will fade away from me. That was a good story. Hello, bestie. You gave me a shower while I napped after work. Oh my god, of course! You need all the support. I'm so proud of you. Hi, Tricky. How are you, sweetie? Hello, Gamer94, Mr. Z. Hello. This is what I needed. You spitting out your tea there, sir? I gotta remember to stay hydrated. I love you too, bestie. You deserve all the praise and all the follows. And when you do debut, I plan to kidnap you, my little Scotch egg. But hello, Tricky. How are you? I hope you're doing well. At least my tea isn't cold. That story was called Proxy, and it had the mention of Slender Man in it. No kidnapping till I get a kiss and hug her. Sisters before misters, Scott. I'll be doing some test streams and harassing friends to let me in their streams. Oh, you're more than welcome to stop by any time. You know, I'm doing my Welsh folklore stream on Sunday, so whenever I dabble into the Scottish folklore, I'm definitely having you join me on those. You can always be in mind. Oh, look at Z. Yeah, we'll definitely support you, bestie. I still can't believe it's been 2 months since I started this journey. I'm still blown away. Absolutely blown away today. Besties are so smart. You deserve it, sweetie. You honestly do. Like, you know, you are amazing. You're so driven. And I mean, girl, I've seen your model. I'm ready to kidnap that. You're a cry. I'm so proud of you. No, 2 whole months. I know. Like, that, I didn't even notice that until, like, you and Scott, you know, resubbed again. It's like 2 months. I was like, excuse me, what? But yes, I have added a couple more fun jelly redeems as well. So those are fun. I have put a cooldown of 30 minutes on my song redeems though, because y'all like to hear that a lot. My little Iggy. Best eggy. It's okay, bestie. You scramble my eggs. You're fine. Oh, bestie wants Yoshi. Okay. Losu. There you go, sweetheart. I have many voices. I'm the voice gremlin. Yes. I'll guarantee you, you'll hear a bad Scottish accent come from me at some point, bestie. And I apologize for that. I scramble a lot of people's eggs. I know. It's a good day being around you. But yes, when you like get to come visit my streams, you get pride of place on my head. And possibly like my other models. I get to hold things. Wait, is anime out here being not say so and someone scrambling eggs? Yes. Bestie, me and Bestie are never like say so together. we're you know, we care about each other a lot. Can't wait to be on your head. I know. When I commission my PNG off intro, I'm gonna have a jellyfish being held in my hand, so like that's, you know, easy to add in. The sussiest little eggy. Deviled eggy. But yes, Z, how are you? So happy you get to come to my stream today. Don't ignore me, because you're shrimping over my voice, sir. Are you lovely jelly beans ready for another story? I hope you are. Today is an amazing, like, a nice chill stream, because I'm like super hyped for Sunday. You guys will be hyped too, I hope. You best be. I worked hard on it, friends. Yes, I've been a hard-working dragon today. Yes, all my wings are tired. So, this story is called I Suffer from Short-Term Memory Loss by Jagger Rosenfeld. Ready for a story, but I don't know what to add to the list I'm making. You making lists, sir? Never a good idea to say you're announcing lists. Could be a hit list. I suffer from short-term memory loss. Or at least I think I do. See, short-term memory loss isn't exactly how it's portrayed in the movies. No. I don't go to bed at night and wake up the next day having completely forgotten the events of the day prior. For me, it's more so the little things. It started about 6 months ago when I woke up at 6 AM to go to the local gas station and fulfill my daily routine of a morning coffee before work. The thing is, I couldn't find my keys. I know for some that may sound like nothing, and most people will just chalk it up to me having misplaced them. To be fair, they're not completely wrong, but please hear me out for a second. I'm very organised. Some may even classify it as OCD. But I like to think of it as me being very careful with my items. I mean, for God's sake, I have a key holder for car keys. I'm single. Nobody is coming in and out of here. I own one car, and the key holder can hold up to 10 keys. Though, that's a bit ridiculous in my opinion. The point I'm trying to make is that I would never, in a million years, not put my keys back on the holder. I spent that entire morning in a frenzy trying to find them. I kept trying to recount my steps from the day prior, but everything felt so fuzzy. It wasn't your typical, I can't remember something. No, it was like I had a complete gap in my memory. I dug through drawers, pant pockets, couch cushions and the trash can. I almost went as far as pulling up the floorboards in hopes of finding some hidden treasures in the form of my keys. Of course, I had to call work and tell them I would be a few hours late. Finally, my panicked pursuit came to an end, for the time being at least, and I grabbed my spare keys. That was only the first of many similar incidents to come. A few months went by, and I continued to search for my keys, to no avail. Part of me was paranoid someone had taken them, giving them access to my car and front door. Logically, I knew that couldn't happen. Why would anyone break into my house simply to take my keys? So I let it pass, and to keep my paranoid mind at bay, I changed the locks. The thing that irked me most about it was losing the keychain. My girlfriend, or now ex-girlfriend, gave me the keychain at the start of our relationship 2 years ago, and it had this white rabbit's foot on it. When she gave it to me, she said, "Since you made me the luckiest girl, I only thought it would be fair to give you some luck back." Yeah, I know it's cheesy, but sometimes cheesy can work. She really was great, and it still amazes me how something as great as our relationship could have turned sour in the matter of a few weeks. We have now been separated for almost 6 months. I would be a liar if I said I still don't think about her every day. It was almost Christmas time when the next short-term memory loss incident occurred. This year my office was throwing a big party, and since the party would be the best time to rub shoulders with upper management, I thought I should try to look my best. So I had mentally planned out my best outfit. A black buttoned-up shirt, expensive dark grey dress pants, my not too flashy but still stylish Prada belt, and my best pair of shoes. This was a very expensive outfit, one that I had rarely worn, and only for the most important of events. It goes without saying that I was in complete and utter shock when I went digging through my closet to find the outfit and it was nowhere to be found. At first, I didn't believe it. I refused to believe that it could just vanish like that. I spent at least an hour tearing my closet apart, clothes strewn across my room, looking for the outfit. My once tidy room now looked like a literal tornado had come through and torn it apart. After searching the closet top to bottom, I went and ransacked every inch of my house. None of this made sense. I might understand if one part of the outfit was missing, like the shirt, but not the whole thing. That doesn't make sense, right? I grabbed my spare keys and went to search my vehicle. I had no real reason to believe it would be anywhere near my car, but I was desperate. Of course it wasn't there. I knew I had only one place left to look, my ex's house. I stared at her name on the contacts of my phone with my finger, hovering above the call button. I stared for what felt like an eternity, debating whether I should call or not. She'll just think you're desperate and want to get back together, or just looking for a quick hookup, I told myself. Finally, I took the leap of faith and called her. Each pause before the next series of ringing gave me what felt like a mini heart attack. I even said hello a few times, thinking she'd actually picked up. I should have seen it coming, but after some time it went to voicemail. I let out a quick sigh of relief before starting my message, stammering, "Hey Maggie, it's Aaron. This is going to sound strange, but I think I may have left that outfit I wore to your uncle's wedding at your place. You know, the one with the Prada belt you got me from last Christmas? Anyway, I really need it, so if you happen to find it, give me a call, or like a text or something. If it's not there, sorry to bother you. Have a good day." I hung up the phone and immediately covered my face with my hands, trying to allay the embarrassment, as if someone could see me. Of course, I never got a call or text back. I really should have seen that coming. To be honest, part of me was really hurt, but my ex wasn't the first thing on my mind. Currently, it was consumed with trying to figure out why I can't remember these things. First, it was my keys. Now, it's a whole outfit. This just doesn't make sense. It was so out of character for me to misplace things, especially ones that are as expensive as my nice outfit. I eventually caved and bought a whole new and equally elegant outfit for the party. The event was as nice as you would expect an office party to be. I saw my co-workers, Jeremy and Martin, standing around near the back and decided to approach them. I really enjoyed both of their company, even though I never had a chance to hang out with them outside of work. Or at least, that's what I thought. This leads me to why I believe I'm suffering from short-term memory loss. After a few minutes of small talk with the guys, Jeremy looked over me and said, "Hey Aaron, we all had such a good time at Skip's bar. You should come back again and kick it with us." "Skip's?" I asked, puzzled. "What are you talking about?" "No way, you got that drunk, man?" Martin chuckled. Utterly confused at this point, I said, "I'm sorry, but I really don't know what you guys are talking about." You went out with us back a few months ago?" Jeremy responded, a blank expression on his face. "What?" "Yeah, it was your idea. You called us up, saying you just broke up with your girlfriend and wanted to clear your head. You asked us if we knew any good bars, and Martin recommended Skip's," Jeremy continued. "Yeah," Martin chimed. "We were up pretty much all night. We were shocked how much of a partier you can be, since you're typically so quiet." It felt as if my whole world had been picked up and smashed down on the earth, shattering into a million pieces. I didn't remember a single thing they told me that happened that night. Not one damn thing. My heart was racing and I felt as if I were about to have a panic attack. "I'll catch up with you guys later," was the only thing I could muster before walking away. I soon left the party, and any plans I had previously of getting in the good graces of upper management went out the door the moment I did. But I didn't care. I was more concerned with trying to figure out what the hell was wrong with me. This wasn't just a little item I'd misplaced or lost. This was a whole goddamn night that I have no recollection of. The next day, I called in sick and went to my regular doctor to see if he could help. I explained everything to Dr. Roberts the best way I could. "Uh-huh. So, you think you're suffering from some sort of brain abnormality?" "Maybe. Why, do you think I am?" I asked, concern clear in my voice. "Aaron, do you know what STML stands for?" Dr. Roberts questioned. "No, I don't think I do." "It stands for short-term memory loss. Tell me, have you suffered from any recent head injury?" "No, I haven't," I responded. "What about sleep deprivation? Have you been getting a full night's rest?" he continued. "Yeah, I get a good 8 hours about every night." "Why, do you think something's wrong?" Before we jump into any conclusions, one last thing. Have you suffered from any recent traumatic events? "Traumatic?" I repeated, stopping to think. "No, I haven't. I mean, I did recently break up with my girlfriend, but I wouldn't say it was necessarily traumatic," I explained. "So what? You think I have short-term memory loss? STML or whatever you call it?" Dr. Roberts gave me a reassuring smile, shaking his head. "No, I don't think you have STML. I think you're a healthy young man who probably puts too much stress on himself. Here, I'll give you a doctor's note. Take a few days off work and get out of your head. You're a nice young man. Don't worry about all of this." I looked down at the note before asking, "So, you think I'm fine?" "I think you're too stressed for your age, especially over things that are so minor." I took the doctor's advice and got a few days off work. I wish I could say it helped, but if anything, it made it worse. Whatever it was. Over the next few weeks, I was completely paranoid. I second-guessed every decision or memory I had. It was like I didn't fully trust myself, or at least not my brain. The days I wasn't at work, I would spend hours still trying to look for my keys. I was completely obsessed. I finally made the decision that work was taking up too much of my time, distracting me from from finding my keys, so I quit. Finally, my time could be fully spent on my search. I know it sounds odd, but I felt that if I could find my keys, then the whole world could make sense again, and this nightmare could finally be over. The next 2 months I barely left the house or took any phone calls, though, to be fair, I rarely received any phone calls in the first place. Soon, I forgot I even had a phone, which would make sense, as I had forgotten to pay the bill for 2 straight months, and the phone service had been shut off. Over that time, I had the same dream, or rather nightmare, every single night. In my dream, I would see my keys on the rabbit's foot keychain that Maggie gave to me, spinning in the air above my head and out of reach, taunting me. The dream consumed me, only furthering my obsession with finding that damned thing. It wasn't much longer until the worst started to happen. I began to hear a noise. No, not a voice, but a faint sound, almost like a tap. Each day it grew louder and louder. I couldn't decipher where it was coming from, but I felt if I could find the source, I could find the keychain. Then, one day, it stopped. I didn't hear it again for a whole week. That leads me here, to today. It has been 6 months since I lost the Lucky Rabbit Foot's keychain. Today, I noticed something while looking at my floor. My wood floorboards were off from their pattern. It looked as if the floor had been tampered with in a certain section of the living room. My heart dropped when I noticed this. How long has it been this way? I thought to myself, and that's when I heard the noise again. This time, it wasn't a quiet tap. It was a loud, earth-shaking boom. The noise wouldn't stop. It was so loud, so deafeningly loud, I nearly dropped to my knees in pain. I looked down and finally knew exactly where it was coming from. Underneath the floorboards, where the patterns doesn't match. I wasted no time. I ran to my garage and grabbed a crowbar, then began hastily prying at the floorboards. As I did so, the sound grew louder and louder, and my vision began to blur until I had a flashback. I remembered breaking up with Maggie on a Saturday night. I was upset, so that night I called up Jeremy and Martin to see if they wanted to grab a drink with me. They agreed, and I decided to wear my nice outfit. It had been a while since I went out to the bar as a single guy, so I wanted to dress my best. I remember the bar, the place we called Skips. I got completely drunk with the guys until we all decided to call it a night. I remembered Martin telling me I should get a cab, but I brushed him off, telling him I'm okay to drive. Just as I was on the verge of remembering everything, I snapped back into reality. I continued digging up the floor, and as I did, this stench began to waft out from underneath. In my whole life, I had never smelt anything so foul. Nearly vomited. Finally, I had removed all the floorboards and looked down beneath. But that's when, again, I was struck with another flashback. This time, I was driving home from the bar completely intoxicated, swerving from left to right. It must have been about 3 a.m. That's when it happened. Standing on the side of the road was a man in his late 30s and what appeared to be a child who couldn't have been older than 10. They had their emergency flashers on. Their car must have broken down. Before I knew it, I had hit them. I was so drunk I didn't even know what happened at first. My head smacked hard against my steering wheel as I came to an abrupt stop. I clambered out of my car, not understanding what had happened, and checked for damage. Luckily for my car, there was only a ding here and there. I then looked behind my vehicle, and there, on the ground, were the now dead and mangled bodies of the young child and the man. I stood there for a solid 5 minutes in complete silence, while tears started rolling down my cheeks. I looked around, checking to see if there was a car inside, Luckily for me, there wasn't. I proceeded to load the bodies into the truck of my car and drove off. I quickly arrived home, but now I was left with the issue of getting rid of them. I paced back and forth in the garage, trying to figure out what to do, until I looked over at the shelf that had some spare wood floorboards on it. That's when I got the idea to rip out a few panels and place the bodies underneath. I loaded them both down one by one. I remember staring at them down there, feeling like I was going to puke from the sight and from my guilt. I looked down at my clothes, realizing that they were covered in blood. So I took them off and threw them down in the pit with them, my shoes included. Finally, I looked at my hand, and my white rabbit's foot keychain was soaked in blood. Their blood. So I dropped it down there with them too. Then I sealed the hole with the new boards. Being the clean freak I am, I had a mountain of cleaning supplies. I spent 2 hours upon hours of the night going over every inch of my car, scraping off their blood. The rest of that night I cried and kept telling myself it didn't happen, until I finally fell asleep. I snapped back into current time as I once again looked down at the hole to see 2 dead bodies that were showing some sign of decay. At this point, I'm far too shaken to care about the odour anymore. On top of them are my bloody clothes, and far down to the right of them is my white rabbit's foot keychain, caked in dry blood. I bend down to grab the keychain, and the moment I do, the noise finally stops. It stops, and the whole world feels normal again, even if just for a moment. I fall to the ground and stare at the keychain, trying to process what I had done. That's when I hear something from underneath the bodies. They're beginning to come out. I crawl back further and further into the corner until there's nowhere left to go. I'm trapped with nothing left but to await their imminent consumption of me. That's the end of that one. Hello, Mr. Pie. Mr. Apple Pie King, how are you? Hi, Inge. How you doing? You enjoying the stories? I think you've lost your spot to Scott, by the way, Inge. But I hope you guys have been well. Sorry I didn't respond straight away, Pie. Fright Fridays is sort of in the zone. Usually the only time people get my attention is if the pings go off, or if you're redeeming something from me. I'm totally not ignoring you, I promise. I get in the zone when I read. I hope you've been well. I hope you're well, honey. And Inge, oh look at those cute little emotes. Your little popcorn in your drink. You all cozy. But yes, I hope you are well. Ugh. Oh, slouching again. Bad nose of me. No slouching. I hope you are enjoying Fright Friday as much as I am. Oh, my tea's gone cold. But we drink it. We do not waste cold tea. So not iced tea, sadly. Ew, cold tea. But yes. You guys ready for another story? Ready for a story. I know a few people that would be on that. Oh, Scott's got getting a hit list. Oh no. Yes. I'm super excited for Sunday's stream as well. Because Sunday is all about Welsh folklore, which I'm so excited to share with you guys. Can you request a story? Depends what story it is, Limp. What story you got for me? And as long as it's not offensive. You'll link it to me. Oh, thank you. I will definitely have a look. I'll skim it over. If I think it is appropriate for our jelly babies today, I will definitely read it. Nothing bad in it. Okay, so nothing offensive in it, Limp? Well, you're free to DM at me. No. Okie dokie, that's fine. Let me have a look-see. Oh. Oh, no. Is that one you wanted me to read? You've been asking me to read that out for a long time. I mean... This is very long, bro. Sure. I mean, if we have time today, I will definitely read it after a few more. I'll probably read it after my break in a couple hours because it's quite a long one. If that's okay with you, Limp. But yes, it's a story called The Last Question. So if chat would like to listen to that one too, that is awesome. I think they'll like it. But I remember you've been asking me to read that for a very long time, Limp. So of course. Tell you what, I will read one more creepypasta before I read the story you've asked me to read out. Awesome. So, this story is called The Puppeteer by Bleeding Heartworks. About a month after my college departure, my parents sent me a white box. The outside of it was decorated with what seemed to be a floral pattern. At first, I didn't really understand the meaning of the damn thing. My parents had always been more of a home crafting kind. Never enjoyed buying things they knew I'd never use. The box was a complete mystery until they told me what it contained. Notes, small pieces of paper that held simple quotes and sentences, something to keep my spirits up when I needed it. Without really questioning it, I kept it. I knew my parents always meant well, even though they had a strange way of showing it, like with the white box. The first few months of my first college year, the box sat neatly between the school books and journals I had started to collect during my studies. The lock on the box was still intact, since I hadn't even bothered opening it. The concept of the stupid thing still bothered me. I felt as if it was making me long for home. And as time went on, that's exactly what I did. I longed for home. My flatmate didn't really strike me as a social person. The first week after I arrived at campus, he kept a low profile, not really wanting to socialise in any way, which I was fine with. I had never been a party person, not even when I was with the closest of friends, so I left him alone. College is supposed to be a place for everyone to find themselves. That's what I've always been told. But there was no denying the fact that I hated it there. As I tried my best to keep up with studying, I could feel myself become more and more passive. Back in the day, there wasn't a single night where I didn't stay up until late hours writing away, wishing I'd be something. But as it became more and more apparent that my dream was far away, I just couldn't hold it up anymore. As time went on, I began pulling myself away from any human contact. The schoolwork quickly started to go over my head, but I couldn't return home. Not after my parents had paid for the entire trip to get here. Not after spending so many hours trying to get in. The white box reminded me of that. With the loneliness, soon came the paranoia. I quickly accepted it, even while realizing it wasn't really the best choice. But I had become so tired. I lost my focus on what actually mattered. Every day, it became harder and harder to even walk out the door. I made excuses to remain in my single room in the shared apartment, waiting out hour after hour. A few weeks later, the teacher's emails about my absence stopped. It was as if I had no one to call, no one to trust. There was no way I was calling up an old friend, or even knocking on my roommate's door to talk. They hated me. I had no idea why they did. That's what I kept telling myself. I was simply good for nothing. The room became my cage. Then it was too late to turn back. During the next few weeks of complete solitude, I had allowed bad habits to creep their way in. Skipping meals only to substitute them with cigarettes quickly became a daily routine, as well as sleeping through most of the days. But then, there were nights I couldn't sleep. I felt too restless. I wasn't able to fully relax the way I usually could. So instead, I stayed up. Like tonight. It had somehow escaped me and my mind that the box I had received from my parents had remained locked. With no further ado, I decided to finally break it open. I tossed the lock aside and proceeded to open it. The description my parents had given about the box seemed relatively true. The thing had been filled with pieces of lined paper, neatly folded to make the receiver give the extra effort to turn them up and read them. But as I did so, I slowly came to realise how everything that had led up to this moment had been a complete waste of time. Don't be afraid to call us if you need us. Never forget where you came from. We love you. Instead of forcing myself to read more notes, I slammed the lid closed. The notes that I had already read were tossed out, along with the box itself. The stress that had been weighing down on me since I arrived here was suddenly pouring out like a river, forcing my vision to go blurry from the tears. If I told myself it would get better, I would have been lying to myself. Things clearly weren't going to get better, and things weren't going to look up. In a fit of rage, I left the room, grabbing my pack of white Winstons, and set out into the night. The second I reached the outside, I allowed my lungs to inhale the chilling cold air. Despite being a heavy smoker lately, it felt even harder to breathe tonight, but the smoke at least made things a little bit easier. Several minutes passed, and nothing seemed to be getting any better. The contents of the box kept going through my head, the words repeating over and over until they didn't mean anything anymore. If my parents loved me so much, why did they let me leave? They knew what kind of hellhole it was to be alone, so why give me the option to do it? It just seems stupid, too stupid to make any sense. As the rain began to fall, I scrapped the remaining stub of the cigarette and decided to head back in. As I stepped back in, I couldn't deny that I feared going back to the room and locking the door. Maybe if there was someone to just step in and stop me. What if? And in the same second, I heard something. In my mind, I knew the house was old and could give off many sounds, but this was something new. It was as if someone was breathing down my neck. With each step, I tried my best to ignore it, but the closer I came to the bottom of the stairs, the more obvious it was. Someone was right behind me. When I turned round, I thought that I'd find nothing. But instead, what I found was a man. At first, I had trouble making out who he was. believing it was someone from the same floor as me. I wanted to give him a simple nod as hello. As I continued to look at him, it quickly became clear that he wasn't from around here. The torn black clothing gave me the impression of someone who was homeless. Was he the one who had been breathing down my neck? And if so, how did he even get in here? With a little bravery in my throat, I uttered a few words. No response. This was creeping me out. I just shook my head at the strange man, figuring I was better off going back to my room upstairs. I turned to go. The second I took a step, a noise broke out. It was distant and yet close. A hollow sound erupted my thought process, causing me to stop dead in my tracks. The man was crying. At this point, I had no intention of staying. I wanted to just leave, go back to my room and close myself in. As I tried to move, however, I felt like my feet were frozen to the stairs. Turning slowly, I could see him come into view. And now he had turned to me. He stood in front of me, and his appearance was the most unnerving thing I had ever seen. His face wasn't painted with scars or deformed in any way. It was completely grey. His eyes were two orbs of golden hue, glowing faintly in the dark stairway we both stood in. His mouth, which had been a frown before, was turning up into a smirk, taunting me from across the few stairs that remained between us. You're alone, aren't you? And as he spoke, his voice echoed with a static underneath. He sounded like a broken radio, going through several transmitters to push his words through. I was unable to turn my gaze away from him, incapable of ignoring him and turning back. Suddenly, and seemingly without my control, my body ran. My eyes kept still, looking at him before he disappeared from my view. Instincts going wild, my feet had led me back into my room. I slammed the door behind me. A few seconds went by, and then it suddenly dawned on me. The man I had been seen back in the stairway wasn't human, nor was he of this world. But the way he had spoken to me, it was as if he was pretending to be someone I knew. Did I know him? Or was the state of shock playing tricks on me, leaving my brain fragmented and scrambled? It slowly dawned on me. Up until now, I had played it as if everything had been fine, but it wasn't. It never had been. And now my insanity, my entire feeling of loneliness, had presented itself outside my door. The weight on my shoulders seemed even heavier now, as if it was pushing me slowly down. My body seemed weak as I felt my limbs going numb, losing hope. My back against the door, I slid down toward the floor with tears in my throat. It took me a few minutes before I was able to even look up again. With tears streaming down my face, it was hard to make out anything in the midst of the blur. My heart was pounding in my chest, beating hard. I knew I wasn't alone in the room anymore. And what scared me the most was that I had allowed him inside. Once again, breathing returned. But this time, I just didn't mind. I didn't care what he was going to do to me. So when I felt him coming close, I merely shivered beneath his touch. He was cold, almost as if he had died and come back to life. But he wasn't anything more than a hallucination. That's what I kept telling myself. When his hand grabbed mine, I followed, my legs standing right up on the floor, my eyes barely able to see any more. The longer he stood behind me, the darker it became. When he asked me to dance with him, I said yes. His free hand wrapped itself around my waist, and the other kept its firm grip on mine. My head slowly began leaning towards his shoulder. Being so close to him, it was impossible to avoid smelling him. He smelled wet, like tea that had been left in the cold, forgotten water for too long. His hair, torn and tangled, fell beneath my head as his shoulder supported my weight. Maybe he was the best thing that could ever happen to me, maybe the worst, but I'd never live long enough to tell. As we kept dancing, he started humming to me, telling me a story of a man he once knew, a puppeteer who could steer his puppets with his broken dreams. Even though no one saw the value of his friendship, he managed to turn them all to like him. But no matter how many friends he claimed, he always still felt lost, unloved, broken, alone. And then he whispered into my ear, "You let me. I can guide you to him. But you need to let go." There was nothing more to remember than the sweet story playing in my head when I closed my eyes. His cold, firm grasp held my body close to his as he seemed to lower me down, closer to the floor. The lower he allowed me to slip, the more I felt as if I was floating. Do you feel it? Maybe. No. Yes. I hated to admit it, but just as he had been plaguing my mind only seconds earlier, he suddenly set me free. I felt empowered, but empty. The bittersweet feeling of allowing myself to go this far was tainting my mind. Even when he whispered into my ear softly about my own choices, I couldn't help but feel selfish. Maybe he knew how I felt deep inside. Maybe that's why he came to save me from this place. I wanted to believe him. I believed him. But the second I had let my entire mind go, that's when he betrayed me. The man I had first thought was there to protect me was now instead the one who sought to destroy me. His hands had grabbed my wrists with a massive force, holding them still to keep his precision intact. With two distant cuts, I felt my wrists starting to pulsate, but no blood left me. Within my Eversight, I could see it clearly. My muscles were pulled out in long strings and veins, and flesh. The sound caused my mind to go numb, my brain screaming for release. Every joint in my body was aching, trembling beneath his strong grasp. I tried to beg him to stop, tried to push him off from me, but no matter how hard I tried, he held me down. Gasping for air, the fingers within my vision had started to turn white as they were slowly pulling at his sleeve. It felt heavy. My body was no longer floated. No, with my heavy heart, he was the only one who was able to carry me now, carrying me over the floorboards, holding my lifeless body with his simple touch. As his hands went for my neck, I drew my last breath. If I had been able to face how lonely I felt, I would have been able to tell my mum and dad that I missed them. I wouldn't have been too shy to tell my flatmate that I needed someone to speak to. I just couldn't stand facing all of my problems on my own. It took too long. Hope you like that one. I do enjoy the puppeteer story. It's very fun. I am going to take a quick 10-minute break to go and make another cup of tea so I can settle down and share with you a story that Limp has sent me called The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. So I'm going to take a quick 10-minute break, so be sure to get yourself something to eat and drink as well. Please stretch your legs as well, and whatever it is you need to do. Because taking little breaks is also important to us content creators. I appreciate all of you being here and supporting me. guys are the best jelly beans and gremlins. But we're going to be taking a quick break. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. Hello, darlings. I just come back off of my quick break. And hello, Max. Thank you, sweetie, for the raid. How was your stream? I hope it was fun. Hope you're doing well today, Max. Please go and give Max some love on their stream. Precious Wolfie. You playing some Overwatch? How was it? Oh, you did good. I'm so glad. Thank you. I have been given another story to read by Limp after. It was fun, just silent today. Hey, that's okay. You know, as long as you're vibing and having a good time, I think that's great. I mean, I'm not good at Overwatch, you know. Those types of games I'm not too good at. But I'm glad you had fun. I tried Overwatch 1 like a few years back. I played like 2 games with Junkrat and I was like, I liked it. I may get scared at what I made in terms of the wish list, but I hope everything goes fine. Oh, you've been making a wish list, sir. Oh. I need to check that out later, Scott. I mean, yeah, go for it, dude. And for everybody who has not checked them out yet or has joined us recently, you'll find all my goodies and social stuff there. You'll also find my Twitter and my YouTube in my Twitch bio, which is Alphans. And all my VODs get archived on my YouTube, so if ever you miss one, you'll find them on my YouTube. Slow and steady uploads of those at the minute, you know, maybe 2 a day. Twitter's dead. No. You know, the platform is still going, it's just they're booting out a couple of technicians, so I expect, you know, Twitter will have a few bugs and stuff in the upcoming weeks. So yeah. But I hope you're all cozy. Limp has suggested me 2 science fiction pieces to read you before we continue with amazing creepypastas, which I'm here for. So let us see, shall we? Pop that up so I have that ready. So the first one is called The Last Question. And it is by Isaac Asimov. He is a well-known science fiction author and has won some bestsellers. Limp really enjoys science fiction. And has been bugging me for a bit to read these out. And I always keep saying no and winding him up. So I will be definitely giving them a read because I think I've teased him enough saying no. I'm totally nice though. Knows him he's an angel. But I hope you're all sitting comfortably. These ones are not spooky. Did I say I'm totally normal Christmases? That's even better. Christmas list is fine. I mean, that means you'll get spoilt for Christmas. Sorry, was a little distracted because I did my first raid and didn't know how and what was happening. Hey, there's a first time for everything, Max. That's totally cool. You did so good. I dropped your shout out as well in my stream, so hopefully some of my lovelies will go and show you some love as well. Because you're a precious jelly bean, Max. What was happening? Honestly, like that was how I reacted when I was sorting out my first stream. Of course, sweetie. You don't have to thank me for that. You get showered in support from Nozomi anytime you're here. I think I'd feel bad if I insulted somebody. But no, you're fine. it's all a learning experience. It is. I mean, like, for those who remember my first stream like 2 months ago, from what Scott and Bessie were telling me, um, we were doing like, tech repair in the stream. Like, it was major scuffed. And I'm still learning a lot. Like, sometimes I'm still learning stuff myself. Like, I finally learned how to do the head pat thing. Put that on my stream today. So I was like, oh, it's that simple? I felt like a bit of an idiot, but I did. Started in August and did teching on stream. Tech, if you don't tech on your stream at some point, are you really a streamer? Because everybody's been through it. We've all started somewhere, and even the pros, are still learning new things every day. But I'm glad you're doing well in your journey, Max. I'm really proud of you. Good job, sweetie. But are you ready for a recommended story by Limp? No scuff, no streamer. Exactly. I know people that have streamed for years and still have tech issues. Exactly! So this is a story, obviously recommended by Limp. It's a science fiction piece. I'm always happy to read out recommended stuff. If you have anything, you're always free to drop them in my DMs, my socials, whatever it is, and I will definitely include them in my streams, because I like doing story times at least once a week with you guys. It's super fun. Sunday will also be sort of like a story, like informative stream, where it's all about Welsh folklore, because I'm a Welsh dragon, if most of you didn't know. And a lot of you have been very interested to learn a bit more about my culture, the heritage, the legends, and the lore. So I did some digging, and compiled a lovely list of, folklores, like histories and legends to share with you guys on Sunday. So I'd love to see you come on Sunday. That would be awesome. But on to the story. This one is called The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. This is by far my favourite story of all of those I have written. After all, I undertook to tell several trillion years of human history in the space of a short story, and I leave it to you as to how well I succeeded. I also undertook another task, but I won't tell you what that was, lest I spoil the story for you. It is a curious fact that innumerable readers have asked me if I wrote this story. They seem never to remember the title of the story, or, for sure, the author, except for the vague thought it might be me. But, of course, they never forget the story itself, especially the ending. The idea seems to drown out everything, and I'm satisfied that it should. The last question was asked for the first time, half in jest, on May 21st, 2061, at a time when humanity first stepped into the light. The question came about as a result of a $5 bet over highballs, and it happened this way. Alexander Adel and Bertram Lupov were two of the faithful attendants of Multivac. As well as many human beings could, they knew that what lay behind the cold, clicking, flashing face, miles and miles of face, of the giant computer. They had at least a vague notion of the general plan of relays and circuits that had long since grown past the point where any single human could possibly have a firm grasp of the whole. Multivac was self-adjusting and self-correcting. It had to be, for nothing human could adjust and correct it quickly enough, or even adequately enough. So Adel and Lupov attended the monstrous giant only lightly and superficially, yet as well as any men could. They fed it data, adjusted questions to its needs, and translated the answers that were issued. Certainly they, and all others like them, were fully entitled to share in the glory that was Multivac. For decades, Multivac had helped design the ships and plot the trajectories that enabled man to reach the Moon, Mars, and Venus. But past that, Earth's poor resources could not support the ships. Too much energy was needed for the long trips. Earth exploited its coal and uranium with increasing efficiency, but there was only so much of both. But slowly Multivac learned enough to answer deeper questions more fundamentally, and on May 14th, 2061, what had been theory became fact. The energy of the sun was stored, converted, and utilized directly on a planet-wide scale. All Earth turned off its burning coal, its fissioning uranium, and flipped the switch that connected all of it to a small station, 1 mile in diameter, circling the Earth at half the distance of the Moon. All Earth ran by invisible beams of sun power. 7 days had not sufficed to dim the glory of it, and Adele and Lupov finally managed to escape from the public functions, and to meet in quiet where no one would think of looking for them, in the deserted underground chambers, where portions of the mighty buried body of Multivac showed. Unattended, idling, sorting data with contented lazy clickings, Multivac 2 had earned its vacation, and the boys appreciated that. They had no intention originally of disturbing it. They had brought a bottle with them, and their only concern at the moment was to relax in the company of each other and the bottle. "It's amazing when you think of it," said Adele. His broad face had lines of weariness in it, and he stirred his drink slowly with a glass rod, watching the cubes of ice slur clumsily about. All the energy we could possibly ever use for free, enough energy if we wanted to draw on it, to melt all Earth into a big drop of impure liquid iron, and still never miss this energy so used. All the energy we could ever use, forever and forever and forever. Lupov cocked his head sideways. He had a trick of doing this when he wanted to be contrary, and he wanted to be contrary now. Partly because he had had to carry the ice and glassware. "Not forever," he said. "Oh hell, just about forever. Till the sun runs down, Bert." "That's not forever." "All right then. Billions and billions of years. 10 billion maybe. Are you satisfied?" Lupov put his finger through his thinning hair as though to reassure himself that some was still left, and sipped gently on his own drink. 10 billion years isn't forever. Well, it will last our time, won't it? So would the coal and uranium. All right. But now, we could hook up each individual spaceship to the solar station, and it could go to Pluto and back 1,000,000 times without ever worrying about fuel. You can't do that on coal and uranium. Ask Multivac if you don't believe me." "I don't have to ask Multivac. I know that." "Then stop running down what Multivac's done for us," said Adele, blazing up. "It did all right." "Who says it didn't? What I say is that a sun won't last forever. That's all I'm saying. We're safe for 10 billion years, but then what?" Lupov pointed a slightly shaky finger at the other. "And don't say we'll switch to another sun." There was silence for a while. Adele put his glass to his lips only occasionally, and Lupov's eyes slowly closed. They rested. Then Lupov's eyes snapped open. "You're thinking we'll switch to another sun when ours is done, aren't you?" "I'm not thinking." "Sure you are. You're weak on logic. That's the trouble with you. You're like the guy in the story who was caught in a sudden shower, and who ran to a grove of trees and got caught under one. He wasn't worried, you see. because he figured when one tree got wet through, he would just get under another one. I get it, said Adele. Don't shout when the sun is done. The other stars will be gone too. Darn right they will, muttered Lupov. It all had a beginning in the original cosmic explosion, whatever that was, and it'll all have an end when all the stars run down. Some run down faster than others. Hell, the giants won't last 100 million years. The sun will last 10 billion years, and maybe the dwarfs will last 200 billion for all the good they are. But just give us 1 trillion years, everything will be dark. Entropy has to increase to maximum, that's all. I know all about entropy, said Adele, standing on his dignity. The hell you do? I know as much as you do. Then you know everything's got to run down someday. Alright, who says they won't? You did, you poor sap. You said we had all the energy we needed forever. You said forever. It was Adele's turn to be contrary. Maybe we can build things up again someday, he said. Never. Why not? Someday? Never. Ask Multivac. You ask Multivac. I dare you. $5 says it can't be done. Adele was just drunk enough to try, just sober enough to be able to phrase the necessary symbols and operations into a question which, in words, might have corresponded to this. Will mankind, one day, without the next expenditure of energy, be able to restore the sun to its full youthfulness, even after it had died of old age? Or maybe it could be put more simply like this. How can the net amount of entropy of the universe be massively decreased? Multivac fell dead and silent. The slow flashing of lights ceased, the distant sounds of clicking relays ended. Then, just as the frightened technicians felt they could hold their breath no longer, there was a sudden springing to life of the teletype attached to that portion of Multivac. 5 words were printed. Insufficient data for meaningful answer. No bet, whispered Lupov. They left hurriedly. By next morning, the two, plagued with throbbing head and cottony mouth, had forgotten the incident. Jared, Geraldine, and Gerardette, 1 and 2, watched the starry picture in the visiplate change as the passage through hyperspace was completed in its non-time lapse. At once, the even powdering of stars gave way to the predominance of a single bright, shining disk, the size of a marble, centered on the viewing screen. That's X-23, said Gerard confidently, his thin hands clamped tightly behind his back and his knuckles whitening. The little Gerardettes, both girls, had experienced the hyperspace passage for the first time in their lives and were self-conscious over the momentary sensation of inside-outness. They buried their giggles and chased one another wildly with their mothers screaming, "We've reached X-23. We've reached X-23. We've—" "Quiet, children," said Geraldine sharply. "You sure, Gerard?" "What is there to be sure about?" asked Gerard, glancing at the bulge of featureless metal just under the ceiling. It ran the length of the room, disappearing through the wall at either end. It was a long ship. As long as the ship. Gerard scarcely knew a thing about the thick rod of metal, except that it was called a microvac. That one asked it questions if one wished. That if one did not, it still had its task of guiding the ship to a pre-ordered destination, of feeding on energies from the various subgalactic power stations, of computing the equations for the hyperspatial jumps. Gerard and his family had only to wait and live in the comfortable residence quarters of the ship. Someone had once told Jared that the AC at the end of the microvac stood for automatic computer in ancient English, but he was on the edge of forgetting even that. Geraldine's eyes were moist as she watched the visiplate. Can't help it. I feel funny about leaving Earth. Why, for Pete's sake? Demanded Jared. We had nothing there. We'll have everything on X-23. You won't be alone. You won't be a pioneer. There are over 1 million people on the planet already. Good Lord, our great-grandchildren will be looking for new worlds because X-23 will be overcrowded. Then, after a reflective pause, I tell you, it's a lucky thing the computers worked out interstellar travel the way the race is growing. I know, said Geraldine miserably. Geraldette, I said promptly. Geraldette 1 said promptly, our microvac is the best microvac in the world. I think so too, said Jared, tussling her hair. It was a nice feeling to have a microvac of your own, and Jared was glad he was part of his generation and no other. In his father's youth, the only computers had been tremendous machines taking up 100 square miles of land. There was only one to a planet, planetary ACs they were called. They had been growing in size steadily for 1,000 years, and then, all at once, came refinement. In place of transistors had come molecular valves so that even the largest planetary AC could be put into a space only half the volume of a spaceship. Jared felt uplifted, as he always did when he thought that his own personal microvac was many times more complicated than the ancient and primitive multivac that had first tamed the sun, and almost as complicated as Earth's Planetarv AC, the largest, that had first solved the problem of hyperspatial travel and had made trips to the stars possible. So many stars, so many planets, sighed Geraldine, busy with her own thoughts. I suppose families will be going out to new planets forever, the way we are now. Not forever, said Jared with a smile. It will all stop someday, but not for billions of years. Many billions. Even the stars run down, you know. Entropy must increase. What's entropy, Daddy? Shrilled Geraldette 2. Entropy, little sweet, is just a word which means the amount of running down of the universe. Everything runs down, you know. Like your little walkie-talkie robot, remember? Can't you just put in a new power unit, like with my robot? The stars are not power units, dear. Once they're gone, there are no more power units. Geraldette 1 at once set up a howl. Don't let them, Daddy. Don't let the stars run down. Now look what you've done, whispered Geraldine, exasperated. How was I to know it would frighten them? Jared whispered back. Ask the microvac, wailed Geraldette 1. Ask him how to turn the stars on again. Go ahead, said Geraldine. It will quiet them down. Geraldette 2 was beginning to cry also. Jared shrugged. Now, honeys. I'll ask microvac. Don't worry, he'll tell us. He asked the microvac, adding quickly, print the answer. Jared cupped the strip, or thin cellophane, and said cheerfully, See now, the microvac says it will take care of everything when the time comes, so don't worry, Geraldine said. And now, children, it's time for bed. We'll be in our new home soon. Jared read the words on the cellophane again before destroying it. Insufficient data for meaningful answer. He shrugged and looked at the visiplate. X-23 was just ahead. VJ-23X of Lameth stared into the black depths of the three-dimensional small-scaled map of the galaxy and said, Are we ridiculous? I wonder, in being so concerned about the matter. MQ-17J of Nikron shook his head. I think not. You know the galaxy will be filled in 5 years at the present rate of expansion. Both seemed in their early 20s. Both were tall and perfectly formed. Still, said VJ-23X, I'd hesitate to submit a pessimistic report to the Galactic Council. I wouldn't consider any other kind of report. Stir them up a bit. We've got to stir them up. VJ-23X sighed. Space is infinite. 100 billion galaxies are there for the taking. More. 100 billion is not infinite, and it's getting less infinite all the time. Consider, 20,000 years ago, mankind first solved the problem of utilising stellar energy, and a few centuries later, interstellar travel became possible. It took mankind 1 million years to fill one small world, and then only 15,000 years to fill the rest of the galaxy. Now, the population doubles every 10 years. VJ-23X interrupted. We can thank immortality for that. Very well, immortality exists, and we have to take it into account. I admit it has its seamy side. This immortality. The Galactic AC has solved many problems for us, but in solving the problem of preventing old age and death, it has undone all of its other solutions. Yet, you wouldn't want to abandon life, I suppose. Not at all, snapped MQ-17J, softening it at once to, Not yet. I'm by no means old enough. How old are you? 223. And you? I'm still under 200. But to get back to my point, population doubles every 10 years. Once this galaxy is filled, we'll have filled another in 10 years. Another 10 years and we'll have filled 2 more. Another decade, 4 more. In 100 years, we'll have filled 1,000 galaxies. In 1,000 years, 1,000,000 galaxies. And in 10,000 years, the entire universe. Then what? VJ-23X said, As a side issue, there's a problem of transportation. I wonder how many sun power units it will take to move galaxies of individuals from one galaxy to the next. A very good point. Already mankind consumes 2 sun power units per year. Most of it's wasted. After all, our own galaxy alone pours out 1,000 sun power units a year, and we only use 2 of those. Granted. But even with 100% efficiency, we only stave off the end. Our energy requirements are going up in a geometric progression even faster than our population. We'll run out of energy even sooner than we run out of galaxies. A good point. A very good point. We'll just have to build new stars out of interstellar gas. Or out of dissipated heat? Asked MQ-17J sarcastically. There may be some way to reverse entropy. We ought to ask the Galactic AC. VJ-23X was not really serious, but MQ-17J pulled out his AC contact from his pocket and placed it on the table before him. I've half a mind to, he said. It's something the human race will have to face someday. He stared somberly at his small AC contact. It was only 2 inches cubed and nothing in itself, but it was connected through hyperspace with the great galactic AC that served all mankind. Hyperspace considered, it was an integral part of the galactic AC. MQ-17J paused to wonder if someday in his immortal life he would get to see the galactic AC. It was on a little world all of its own. A spider webbing of force beams holding the matter within, which surges off submissions, took the place of the old clumsy molecular valves. Yet despite its subetheric workings, the galactic AC was known to be a full 1,000 feet across. MQ-17J asked suddenly of his AC contact, "Can entropy be reversed?" VJ-23X looked startled and said at once, "Oh, say, I didn't really mean you have to ask that." "Why not? We both know entropy can't be reversed. You can't turn smoke and ash back into a tree." "Do you have trees on your world?" asked MQ-17J. The sound of the galactic AC startled them into silence. Its voice came thin and beautiful out of the small AC contact on the desk. It said, "There is insufficient data for a meaningful answer." VJ-23X said, "See?" The two men thereupon returned to the question of the report they were to make to the Galactic Council. Z Prime's mind spanned the new galaxy, with a faint interest in the countless twists of stars that powdered it. He had never seen this one before. Would he ever see them all? So many of them, each with its loads of humanity. But a load that was almost a dead weight. More and more, the real essence of men was to be found out here, in space. Minds, not bodies. The immortal bodies remained back on the planets, in suspension over the eons. Sometimes they roused from material activity, but that was growing rarer. Few new individuals were coming into existence to join the incredibly mighty throng. But what matter? There was little room in the universe for new individuals. Z Prime was roused out of his reverie upon coming across the wispy tendrils of another mind. "I am Z Prime," said Z Prime. "And you?" "I am D-1. Your galaxy?" "We call it only the galaxy." "And you?" "We call ours the same. All men call their galaxy, and nothing more. Why not?" "True, since all galaxies are the same." "Not all galaxies. On one particular galaxy, the race of man must have originated. That makes it different." Z Prime said, "On which one?" "I cannot say. The Universal AC would know." "Shall we ask him? I am suddenly curious." Z Prime's perceptions broadened, until the galaxies themselves shrank and became a new, more diffuse powdering of a much larger background. So many hundreds of billions of them, all with their immortal beings, all carrying their load of intelligences, with minds that drifted freely through space. And yet one of them was unique among them, all in being an original galaxy. One of them had, in its vague and distant past, a period when it was the only galaxy populated by man. Z Prime was consumed with curiosity to see this galaxy, and he called out, "Universal AC, on which galaxy did mankind originate?" The Universal AC heard, for on every world and throughout space, it had its receptors ready, and each receptor led through hyperspace to some unknown point where the Universal AC kept itself aloof. Z Prime knew of only one man whose thoughts had penetrated within sensing distance of Universal AC, and he reported only a shining globe 2 feet across, difficult to see. "But how can that be all of Universal AC?" Z Prime had asked. "Most of it," had been the answer, "is in hyperspace. In what form it is, there I cannot imagine. Nor could anyone." For the day had long since passed. Z Prime knew when any man had any part of the making of the Universal AC. Each Universal AC designed and constructed its successor. each during the existence of 1,000,000 years or more, accumulated the necessary data to build a better and more intricate, more capable successor, in which its own store of data and individuality would be submerged. The Universal AC interrupted Z Prime's wandering thoughts, not with words, but with guidance. Z Prime's mentality was guided into the dim sea of galaxies, and one in particular enlarged into stars. A thought came, infinitely distant, but infinitely clear. This is the original galaxy of man. But it was the same after all, the same as any other, and Lee Prime stifled his disappointment. D-1, whose mind had accompanied the other, said suddenly, "And in one of these stars, the original star of man." The Universal AC said, "Man's original star has gone nova. It is a white dwarf." "Did the men upon it die?" asked Lee Prime, startled and without thinking. The Universal AC said, "A new world, as in such cases, was constructed for their physical bodies in time." "Yes, of course," said Z Prime, but a sense of loss overwhelmed him even so. His mind released its hold on the original galaxy of man, let it spring back and lose itself among the blurred pinpoints. He never wanted to see it again. D-1 said, "What is wrong?" "The stars are dying. The original star is dead." "They must all die." "Why not?" "But when all energy is gone, our bodies will finally die, and you and I with them. It will take billions of years." "I do not wish it to happen even after billions of years. Universal AC, how may stars be kept from dying?" "I do not wish it to happen," D-1 said in amusement. "You're asking how entropy might be reversed in direction?" And the Universal AC answered, "There is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer." Z Prime's thoughts fled back to his own galaxy. He gave no further thought to D-1, whose body might be waiting on a galaxy 1,000,000,000,000 light years away, or on the star next to Z Prime's own. It didn't matter. Unhappily, Z Prime began collecting interstellar hydrogen out of which to build a small star of his own. If the stars must someday die, at least some could yet be built. Man considered with himself, for in a way, man, mentally, was one. He consisted of 1,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 ageless bodies, each in its place, each resting quiet and incorruptible, each cared for by perfect automatons, equally incorruptible, while the minds of all the bodies freely melted into the other, indistinguishable. Man said, "The universe is dying." Man looked about the dimming galaxies. The giant stars, spendthrifts, were gone long ago, back in the dimmest of the dim, far past. Almost all stars were white dwarfs, fading to the end. New stars had been built of the dust between the stars, some by natural processes, some by man himself, and those were going too. White dwarfs might yet be crashed together, and of the mighty forces so released, new stars built, but only one star for every 1,000 white dwarfs destroyed, and those would come to an end too. Man said, "Carefully husbanded, as directed by the cosmic AC, the energy that is even yet left in all the universe will last for billions of years." "But even so," said man, "eventually it will all come to an end. However, it may be husbanded, however stretched out. The energy once expended is gone and cannot be restored. Entropy must increase forever to the maximum." Man said, Can entropy not be reversed? Let us ask the cosmic AC. The cosmic AC surrounded them, but not in space. Not a fragment of if it was in space. It was in hyperspace, and made of something that was neither matter nor energy. The question of its size and nature no longer had meaning in any terms that man could comprehend. Cosmic AC, said man. How may entropy be reversed? The cosmic AC said, there is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer. Man said, collect additional data. The cosmic AC said, I will do so. I have been doing so for 100 billion years. My predecessors and I have been asked this question many times. All the data I have remains insufficient. Will there come a time, said man, when data will be sufficient, or is the problem insoluble in any conceivable circumstances? The cosmic AC said, no problem is insoluble in all conceivable circumstances. Man said, when will you have enough data to answer this question? The cosmic AC said, there is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer. Will you keep working on it? Asked man. The cosmic AC said, I will. Man said, we shall wait. The stars and galaxies died and snuffed out. Space grew black after 10 trillion years of running down. One by one, man fused with AC, each physical body losing its mental identity in a manner that was somehow not a loss but a gain. Man's last mind paused before fusion, looking over a space that included nothing but the dregs of one last dark star and nothing besides but incredibly thin matter, agitated randomly by the tag ends of heat wearing out, asymptotically to the absolute zero. Man said, AC, is this the end? Can the chaos not be reversed into the universe once more? Can that not be done? AC said, there is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer. Man's last mind fused and only AC existed, and that in hyperspace. Matter and energy had ended, and with it space and time. Even AC existed only for the sake of the one last question that it had never answered from the time a half-drunken computer technician 10 trillion years before had asked the question of a computer that was to AC far less than was a man to man. All other questions had been answered, and until this last question was answered also, AC might not release his consciousness. All collected data had come to a final end. Nothing was left to be collected. But as collected data had yet to be completely correlated and put together in all possible relationships, a timeless interval was spent in doing that. And in came to pass that AC learned how to reverse the direction of entropy. But there was now no man to whom AC might give the answer of the last question. No matter, the answer, by demonstration, would take care of that too. For another timeless interval, AC thought how best to do this. Carefully, AC organised the program. The consciousness of AC encompassed all of what once been a universe and brooded over what was now chaos. Step by step, it must be done. The AC said, let there be light, and there was light. I hope that was an interesting read for you. I found that really interesting. A lot of big words for Nozomi, but Nozomi did very well in reading that one. Falls in from the sky. Hello, Moth. How are you, sweetie? Welcome back, Scott. I hope you're okay. F. Never mind. What did you want to say, Limp? I've got your other one to read as well, Limp. Which is the last answer. Yeah, I just had to wash my tattoo. Oh, awesome, awesome. Tattoo care is important. A bit of a mouthful with some big words, but I like the ending. It's all sciencey and stuff. Fully healed. This one's a bit easier to read. Thank you, Limp. you care for me. Just catching a breather and having a drink. I keep forgetting to pace myself and take drinks. I know you read at 2nd grade level. I know. You're lucky I love you, Limp. It's fine. But hopefully you'll stop bugging me to read these now. You're so needy. But you're the best bean, Limp, and I love you. But this is... I'm just hoping Bestie is sleeping. It wasn't around when I mentioned a thing. Gringay. It's Kringay, Limp. God damn. Oh, you mean the list? Have you posted the list though, Scott? Did you post it up? You gotta send it me, dude, though. I wanna have a look. I definitely wanna have a look. Yes. Yes, Scott. Want to see? Y'all see mine. My throne list. I wanna see yours. Because if you don't tell me, I'll tell Bestie. Fine, yeah, you best send it me. Hello, Lam Lam. See, Lam Lam wants to see your throne too. We'll tell Bestie. How are you, Lam Lam? How are you doing, darling? I hope you're doing okay. I missed you. I'm doing great. I'm just reading some stories that Limp sent me to read out. They're science fiction and pretty cool. I know. We need to hang out again sometime. I hope you come to Sunday stream, Lam Lam. It's the Welsh folklore stream. Because that's going to be fun. And I'll be trying to keep Sakura company tomorrow on some of her streams. It might be a bit late for her Smash and Pass, but I said I'm gonna at least pop into her streams and keep her company tomorrow. I thought you were. You're busy. Oh my god. Oh no, I hate busy weekends. Weekends are pretty chill for me, to be honest. You know, I think the most I have to do is just like some chores and laundry. But I guess you don't see all. So you've already seen it. Don't test me. Lam Lam's coming for you. She's gonna bring out her lamb chops and chop you. Oh, you went out to eat? What did you eat? Was it yummy? I just forgot I didn't eat my candy bar when I was on my break. Oh, travesty. So I get to watch you every weekend. You can watch me anytime you want, Z. You know, and I have all my VODs. I'm uploading my VODs to my YouTube as well, Z. I'll eat her lamb chop. Scott. You're going after Eggy and lamb chop? It was yummy. I went to a chicken place called Roosters. I love the name for that. That's really fun. Oh, I'm glad. I hope it was really good food. But I think the last time I like, I went out to eat was like for a family birthday, which was super fun. But my favorite place to go to was the smokehouse that I went for my birthday, which was super nice. I got to try corn dogs. I'm gonna make chili tonight. It's snowing. Blech, spicy food moth, you're punishing me. No. Chili's always spicy. I have my Kit Kat. Tasty choco. I hope that I hope that buys both your silences. Let me just copy that link and just DM it, bestie. You fell for that, Scott. It'll buy your silence now, mate. I was gremling you, dude. I was like, oh, he's gonna send it me. He doesn't want Bestie to say, I'm sending it to Bestie. I will fight you both. And try it. That link sits in Bestie's DMs with me now. Get loved on, Scott. Nom nom nom. Yes, I'm putting money on Lamb winning. Scott's like, no! I'm glad Bestie didn't see it. And I'm just like, plotting my revenge. I'm like, come on, Scott. Just let me see it. I won't tell Bestie. Oh my god. I'm tired. Bestie said thank you in DMs. Oh, it's Scott in stream. You will cut it with your rope. Oh my god. You've got a knife rope. I'm taking a little snack break, guys. Don't worry. Pacing myself. The chocolate's good. Oh, thank you for stopping by, Lam Lam. You're such a sweetheart. We love you. Yes, go shower. Totally not shrimping over Lamb here. I'd join you, but you're so far away. Oh, we both know you're a good girl. Hey, yo. Me too. I have to get ready to become... Oh, you guys rubbing in that you guys got Pokemons already. I want my Pokemons. I'm excited. I want to get it, but it's expensive. Pokemon Master. Important question though, Z. What start are you going for? Do you want it? Yes, dude. Lives in my throne. Sprigatito. Oh, the kitty! That's the kitty, isn't it? Sprigatito. Is it the kitty? Yeah, I want the kitty too! Usually, it's really weird for me because usually I always choose water types because I really like most of the water types in the Pokemon. Like, my favorite water type is Poplio. Like, I'm just like, that glorious Primarina. I'm like, yas! Like, I need. But yeah, don't put yourself out of pocket though, Z. Jeez, that's expensive. It's in my throne. Playing to reboot. Full 3K. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Scott, I decided to be a cheeky dragon. And revenge for all the lovely biddies and love support I get off you. I sent it to Bestie. Yes. All the time. Nozomi's super sweet, but no. I can be a crafty gremlin. I'll just be like, no, you get love done. You gonna support me? Nah, I'll get you. I'm gonna make y'all Christmas cards this year. You realize I will get you. Try me, Scott. I will smother you in compliments. You're like, I'm not voice affected. No, I will ruin you. Devil. You watch me. Oh! Oh, you precious little bean. You is bean. I might stop by this. Might not stop by. Hey, yo. Oh, look at the figures. It's so cute. Oh, Z, if you check the jelly bean redeems, I added a nice little Welsh song in there. I know how much you like when I speak Welsh. You best come to Sunday stream though, Z. About Welsh folklore. Lots more Welsh talking. You Welsh shrimp. Oh, so precious. I fear no Scott. Scott was instantly in there with his two-month resub today. I lose track of time. Here's the thing. Lamb knows one thing that really affects me in that way. There is no way you'll be able to do it as a VTuber. We'll see. We'll see. I'll plot. I will plot with Lamb. I will plot. Never underestimate Nozomi. Oh, thank you, Lamb. Another sub for another month. 2 months in a row. I appreciate... Oh, look at you. Scott gifting everyone subs. He's trying to start a war. Aww. Thank you, Scott, for spoiling Lamb for the 2nd month. I still can't get over that. 2 months. Y'all still hanging around with me for 2 months? I really appreciate you guys. You're absolutely precious. And I appreciate the support and I love it. And I am so happy to be meeting so many new friends. Y'all just precious and I fucking love you guys. Oh! I'm going crazy. It's so cute. You're gonna make me freak out. I don't think anyone's close for another freak out. You really think I see these as wars instead of mini battles? Does that mean like Inge's like the boss battle of your mini battles? Oh. So, I have another story suggested to me by Limp, who's waiting patiently for me to read it to y'all. So, this is very similar to the one we just read about entropy and stuff like that. It's another like science-y, fiction-y type of one. So I'll be reading this before we get back to some creepypastas again. But this one is called The Last Answer. And it's again by Isaac Asimov. I hope you are ready. Murray Templeton was 45 years old, in the prime of life, and with all parts of his body in perfect working order, except for certain key portions of his coronary arteries. But that was enough. The pain had come suddenly, had mounted to an unbearable peak, and had then ebbed steadily. He could feel his breath slowing, and a kind of gathering peace washing over him. There is no pleasure like the absence of pain, immediately after pain. Murray felt an almost giddy lightness, as though he were lifting in the air and hovering. He opened his eyes and noted, with distant amusement, that the others in the room were still agitated. He had been in the laboratory when the pain had struck, quite without warning, and when he had staggered, he had heard surprised outcries from the others before everything vanished into overwhelming agony. Now, with the pain gone, the others were still hovering, still anxious, still gathered about his fallen body, which he suddenly realised he was looking down on. He was down there, sprawled, face contorted. He was up here, at peace, and watching. He thought, miracle of miracles, the life after life nuts were right. And, although that was a humiliating way for an atheist physicist to die, he felt only the mildest surprise, and no alteration of the peace in which he was immersed. He thought, there should be some angel, or something, coming for me. The earthly scene was fading. Darkness was invading his consciousness, and off in a distance, as a last glimmer of sight, there was a figure of light, vaguely human in the form and radiating warmth. Murray thought, what a joke on me. I am going to heaven. Even as he thought that, the light faded, but the warmth remained. There was no lessening of the peace, even though in all the universe only he remained, and the voice. The voice said, I have done this so often, and yet I still have the capacity to be pleased at success. It was in Murray's mind to say something, but he was not conscious of possessing a mouth, tongue, or vocal cords. Nevertheless, tried to make a sound. He tried mouthlessly to hum words or breathe them, or just push them out by a contraction of something. And they came out. He heard his own voice, quite recognisable, and his own words infinitely clear. Murray said, is this heaven? The voice said, This is no place as you understand place. Murray was embarrassed, but the next question had to be asked. Pardon me if I sound like a jackass. Are you God? Without changing intonation, or in any way marring the perfection of the sound, the voice managed to sound amused. It is strange that I am always asked that, in of course an infinite number of ways. There is no answer I can give that you would comprehend. I am, which is all that I can say significantly, and you may cover that with any word or concept you please. Murray said, and what am I? A soul? Or am I only personified existence too? He tried not to sound sarcastic, but it seemed to him that he had failed. He thought then fleetingly of adding a Your Grace or Holy One or something to counteract the sarcasm, and could not bring himself to do so, even though, for the first time in his existence, he speculated on the possibility of being punished for his insolence or sin, with hell, and what that might be like. The voice did not sound offended. You are easy to explain, even to you. You may call yourself a soul, if that pleases you, but what you are is a nexus of electromagnetic forces, so arranged that all the interconnections and interrelationships are exactly imitative of those of your brain in the universe existence, down to the smallest detail. Therefore, you have your capacity for thought, your memories, your personality. It still seems to you that you are you. Murray found himself incredulous. You mean the essence of my brain was permanent? Not at all. There is nothing about you that is permanent, except what I choose to make so. I formed the nexus. I constructed it while you had physical existence, and adjusted the moment when the existence failed. The voice seemed distinctly pleased with itself, and went on after a moment's pause. an intricate but entirely precise construction. I could, of course, do it for every human being on your world, but I am pleased that I do not. There is pleasure in the selection. You choose very few then. Very few. And what happens to the rest? Oblivion! Oh, of course, you imagine a hell. Murray would have flushed if he had the capacity to do so. He said, I do not. It is spoken of. Still, I would scarcely have thought I was virtuous enough to have attracted your attention as one of the elect. Virtuous? Ah, I see what you mean. It is troublesome to have to force my thinking small enough to permeate yours. No, I have chosen you for your capacity for thought, as I chose others, in quadrillions, from all the intelligent species of the universe. Murray found himself suddenly curious. The habit of a lifetime. He said, Do you choose them all yourself, or are there others like you? For a fleeting moment, Murray thought there was an impatient reaction to that. When the voice came, it was unmoved. Whether or not there are others is irrelevant to you. This universe is mine, and mine alone. It is my invention, my construction, intended for my purpose alone. And yet with quadrillions of nexi, you are formed. You spend time with me. Am I that important? The voice said, You are not important at all. I am also with others in a way which, to your perception, would seem simultaneous. And yet you are one. Again, amusement. The voice said, You seek to trap me into an inconsistency. If you were an amoeba, who could consider individuality only in connection with single cells, and if you were to ask a sperm whale, made up of 30 quadrillion cells, whether it was one or many, how could the sperm whale answer in a way that would be comprehensible to the amoeba? Murray said dryly, I'll think about it. It may become comprehensible. Exactly. That is your function. You will think. To what end? You already know everything, I suppose. The voice said, Even if I knew everything, I could not know that I know everything. Murray said, That sounds like a bit of Eastern philosophy. Something that sounds profound precisely because it has no meaning. The voice said, You have promise. You answer my paradox with a paradox, except that mine is not a paradox. Consider. I have existed eternally. But what does that mean? It means I cannot remember having come into existence. If I could, I would not have existed eternally. If I cannot remember having come into existence, then there is at least one thing, the nature of my coming into existence, that I do not know. Then, too, although what I know is infinite, it is also true that what there is to know infinite, and how can I be sure that both infinities are equal? The infinity of potential knowledge may be infinitely greater than the infinity of my actual knowledge. Here is a simple example. If I knew every one of the even integers, I would know an infinite number of items, and yet I would still not know a single odd integer. Murray said, But the odd integers can be derived. If you divide every single integer, there we go, said it right, in the entire infinite series by 2, you will get another infinite series which will contain within it the infinite series of odd integers. The voice said, You have the idea, I am pleased. It will be your task to find other such ways, far more difficult ones, from the known to the not yet known. You have your memories. You will remember all the data you have ever collected or learned. or that you have or will deduce from that data. If necessary, you will be allowed to learn what additional data you will consider relevant to the problems you set yourself. Would you not do all that for yourself? The voice said, I can, but it is more interesting this way. I constructed the universe in order to have more facts to deal with. I inserted the uncertainty principle, entropy, and other randomization factors to make the whole not instantly obvious. It has worked well, for it has amused me throughout its entire existence. I then allowed complexities that produced first life and then intelligence, and use it as a source for a research team. Not because I need the aid, but because it would introduce a new random factor. I found I could not predict the next interesting piece of knowledge gained, where it would come from, but by what means derived. Murray said, does that ever happen? Certainly. A century doesn't pass in which some interesting item doesn't appear somewhere. Something that you could have thought of yourself, but had not done so yet. Yes. Murray said, do you actually think there's a chance of my obliging you in this manner? In the next century, virtually none. In the long run, though, your success is certain, since you will be engaged eternally. Murray said, I will be thinking through eternity? Forever? Yes. To what end? I have told you. Find new knowledge. But beyond that, for what purpose am I to find new knowledge? It was what you did in your universe-bound life. What was its purpose then? Murray said, to gain new knowledge that only I could gain, to receive the praise of my fellows, to feel the satisfaction of accomplishment, knowing that I had only a short time allotted me for the purpose. Now I would gain only what you could gain yourself if you wished to take a small bit of trouble. You cannot praise me, you can only be amused, and there is no credit or satisfaction in accomplishment when I have all eternity to do it in. The voice said, and you do not find thought and discovery worthwhile in itself? You do not find it requiring no further purpose? For a finite time, yes, not for all eternity. I see your point. Nevertheless, you have no choice. You say I am to think. You cannot make me do so. The voice said, I do not wish to constrain you directly. I will not need to. Since you can do nothing but think, you will think. You do not know how not to think. Then I will give myself a goal. I will invent a purpose. The voice said tolerantly, that you can certainly do. I've already found a purpose. May I know what it is? You know already. I know we are not speaking in the ordinary fashion. You adjust my nexus in such a way that I believe I hear you, and I believe I speak. But you transfer thoughts to me, and from me directly. And when my nexus changes with my thoughts, you are at once aware of them, and do not need my voluntary transmission. The voice said, you are surprisingly correct, I am pleased, but it also pleases me to have you tell me your thoughts voluntarily. Then I will tell you. The purpose of my thinking will be to discover a way to disrupt this nexus of me that you have created. I do not want to think for no purpose, but to amuse you. I do not want to think forever to amuse you. I do not want to exist forever to amuse you. All my thinking will be directed towards ending the nexus. That would amuse me. The voice said, I have no objection to that. Even concentrated thought on ending your own existence may, in spite of you, come up with something new and interesting. And, of course, if you succeed in this suicide attempt, you will have accomplished nothing, for I would instantly reconstruct you, and in such a way as to make your method of suicide impossible. And if you found another, and still more subtle fashion of disrupting yourself, I would reconstruct you with that possibility eliminated, and so on. It could be an interesting game. but you will nevertheless exist eternally. That is my will. Murray felt a quaver, but the words came out with a perfect calm. Am I in hell then, after all? You have implied there is none. But if this were hell, you would lie to us as part of the game of hell. The voice said, In that case, of what use is it to assure you that you are not in hell? Nevertheless, I assure you, there is here neither heaven nor hell. There is only myself. Murray said, Consider then that my thoughts may be useless to you. If I come up with nothing useful, will it not be worth your while to disassemble me and take no further trouble with me? As a reward, you want nirvana as the price of failure, and you intend to assure me failure. There is no bargain there. You will not fail. With all eternity before you, you cannot avoid having at least one interesting thought, however you try against it. Then I will create another purpose for myself. I will not try to destroy myself. I will set as my goal the humiliation of you. I will think of something you have not only never thought of, but could never think of. I will think of the last answer, beyond which there is no knowledge further. The voice said, You do not understand the nature of the infinite. There may be things I have not yet troubled to know. There cannot be anything I cannot know. Murray said thoughtfully, You cannot know your beginning, you have said so. Therefore you cannot know your end. Very well then. That will be my purpose, and that will be the last answer. I will not destroy myself. I will destroy you, if you do not destroy me first. The voice said, Ah! You came to that in rather less than average time. I would have thought it would have taken you longer. There is not one of those I have with me in this existence of perfect and eternal thought that does not have the ambition of destroying me. It cannot be done. Murray said, I have all eternity to think of a way of destroying you. The voice said equably, Then try to think about it. And it was gone. But Murray had his purpose now and was content. For what could any entity conscious of eternal existence want but an end? For what else had the voice been searching for countless billions of years? And for what other reason had intelligence been created and certain specimens salvaged and put to work, but to aid in that great search? And Murray intended that it would be he, and he alone, who would succeed. Carefully, and with the thrill of purpose, Murray began to think. He had plenty of time. And that was that little story that came from Limp, suggested us the last question. That was a really good, fun read. I actually enjoyed reading those. But those are interesting. Thank you very much, Limp, for recommending them to me. Finally read them as well. Did not disappoint. I hope you lovelies enjoyed those. Little different perspective on things. But if you guys have anything you would love me to read, always feel free to drop them to me. I absolutely love it. I adore, reading stuff people have written, recommend to me. Like, it gets you thinking, I think, about the bigger picture of the world and how we see ourselves and what the world might possibly be like in the future. No. I don't think we're close to flying cars yet. I used to remember that was a big thing for us growing up. We're like, oh, we're gonna get, flying cars. We're gonna be awesome. And then we're in 2022 now. It's gonna be Christmas soon. I'm not prepared for that. I am planning to do a Christmas Day stream as well, by the way. So nice, happy vibes. Surprisingly, this year is one of the few years I'm actually excited for Christmas. I'm not usually a Christmas person. So, not like Grinch type Christmas. I don't get excited. I haven't really been excited for Christmas for quite a number of years now. Since I did lose my grandparents. Like, that was family time for me, but there's so many fun things to do at Christmas now, and happy vibes. And, you know, I own a Christmas dress, so I like to, dress up at least, you know, around the holidays. But when it comes to like gift giving, um it depends. It varies on my gifts. I know one year I made it my like goal to get my sister something she'd really appreciate. And it had the result I didn't expect. She cried when she opened the gift, and she was really happy about it. She really likes Lilo and Stitch, so I got her a nice necklace that says Ohana means family on it. And it was the last gift out of a group I gave her. And I was like, I got this for you as well. She was like, wasn't expecting it. She was like a really small package. She's like, oh, what's this? I went, just open it. And she opened it, and I'd never seen her just like, she cried, and she was just so like happy and touched. And I was like, I felt really like, just so nice and overwhelmed about it. I was like, I didn't think like just a gift that I'd put time and effort into picking somebody would make them react in such a wholesome way. And so I like trying to pick out nice, meaningful gifts to people. Um, but it's when someone's like, "What do you want for Christmas?" And knows me, I'm like, I have no idea, to be honest. Or it's like, what do you need anything? And I'm just like, is anything broken? Do I need anything? And it's like, no. But they're like, well, do you want anything? I went, I want lots of things, but they cost money. And you can spend money on different things. Like bills, stuff for yourself, stuff for other people. It's a cruel cycle. Very cruel cycle indeed. So let us delve into some more creepypastas. Because why not? I'm having so much fun. I hope you guys are too. But story times are always fun. You know? Whew. Gotta like make sure I take care of myself. Chat be failing on taking care of me today. I kid. I love you guys. And it's been a busy week. And I've got work in the mixes behind the scenes. Oh, thank you, Scott, you precious bean. My care package. Oh, I gotta put my new little tea thing up for my care package. Oop, cup of tea. Means you gotta have a drink, Nozomi. Cass, my darling, hello, sweetie. How are you? Thank you for the care package. And stretchies. Ugh. Cass! Oh, welcome back from your shower, Lamb Lamb. Are you nice and clean? I'm now genuinely scared if you said... I did say... As soon as you DM me the link, I was muttering to myself while streaming. I was like, I'm just going to copy this link and I'm just going to send it to Anime. And I did. And she was like, thank you, bestie. Evil laughters. Wiggles! All the wiggles. Reaper has created a wiggle army. I swear. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, Cass. Did you enjoy your shower, Lamb Lamb? No, get loved on, Scott. Even you deserve lots of loves. You precious, precious gremlin. Very refreshing. Darn! And I wasn't there to wash her back? No! I would. I know, so sad. And I could wash your hair for you and take care of you and get you like a nice warm towel. Yes, always next time. Yes. Oh, yay. I'm excited. Shower time with Lam Lam. Hey, yo, let's go. Pop down my cup of tea. Thank you for my care package there, Scott. I appreciate it, sweetie. So this story is called Hobo Heart Stitches by Chris Oz Bolton. It was a winter afternoon. Like most winter afternoons, it was overcast, cloudy, with a bit of rain. The wind blew and the leaves rustled on the sidewalk as Cece and her friend Elizabeth walked home from school. It was nice walking this way for a change, Cece said as the two strolled along. Elizabeth smiled. Thanks for joining me this way. I can't believe Brittany didn't show up again today. She didn't call or anything. Cece rolled her eyes. She probably skipped and went to the lake with Glenn. Elizabeth laughed. You're probably right. All right, well, I'll see you tomorrow. The two parted ways and Cece continued. She had just a few more blocks till she was home. As she walked along, she saw a small, scruffy dog pawing at something in the gutter. Hey, little guy, what you after? She crouched down and saw a bone stuck in a crack. Cece pried it loose, and the dog snatched it up and darted away towards the alley. The girl followed. Hey, don't I at least get to pet you? When she turned the corner, she saw the dog chewing on the bone at the feet of a boy sitting on a milk crate. He was wearing a grey hoodie and dirty jeans. He was tall and lanky with white hair, crystal blue eyes, and a skull painted on his face. Well, hello, Cece said, a little surprised. Is he your dog? The boy looked at Cece with a puzzled expression. Yes. Cece smiled. Can I pet him? Still confused, the boy looked at Cece closely. Sure. Are you not sad? Cece giggled as she pet the dog. Why would I be sad? I don't know. Everyone I meet is sad, replied the boy. Cece frowned. Well, that's horrible. Maybe if you didn't have a skull on your face, people would be in a better mood around you. It's a little late for Halloween, you know. The boy shrugged. I can't help it. It's part of me. I've never met anyone that's been happy before. Cece turned to look at the boy's face so she could inspect the skull. She reached out and placed a timid hand upon his cheek. She attempted to smear what she had thought to be paint, but realised that it was his skin. She quickly dismissed the skull when her eyes met his. They were bright blue and appeared to illuminate at certain angles. She became disorientated and had to shake her head to clear her thoughts. She fumbled and stuttered for words. Your eyes, name. Yeah, what's your name? The boy smiled. I don't think I have a name. I'm a Gemberling. A what? She replied. A Gemberling. I was created to serve a purpose, replied the boy. What purpose? Cece inquired with a puzzled look. I don't think you'd want to know, he said as his eyes seemed to dim. Okay. So what do people call you? Cece asked, becoming more confused. The only person who has ever called me anything was my creator, and he only calls me Gemberling, he said with hesitation. That makes me sad. You need a name, Cece said, before being interrupted by the boy. No! As he reached out to grab her arm. Never be sad. My heart couldn't take it. Cece was startled. Why couldn't your heart take it? You just met me. You're special. Your heart is special. My heart has no place to call home, and you have made it feel something. It's never felt anything before, the boy said. Hobo Heart, Cece said with a smile. Huh? The boy asked, confused. That's your name. The boy whose heart has no home. Hobo Heart, Cece explained. And now that you have a name, you and I can be friends. The boy smiled. Yes, I like it. My name, Hobo Heart. Okay, well, I have to get home. You'll be here tomorrow so I can see you, right? Asked Cece. Yes, of course, said Hobo Heart with a smile. Cece continued her walk home, but not before looking over her shoulder one last time to inspect the mysterious boy. The next day, Cece came to the alley to see Hobo. When she rounded the corner, he was sitting there on his milk crate. He looked up and saw her, and his heartbeat began to quicken. You actually came back? He asked with a smile. Well, of course I did, silly. Now let's go do something besides sit in this alley, Cece said, as she blushed. What could we do? Asked Hobo. Well, I don't know. Anything is better than sitting here, Cece said, pulling at Hobo's sleeve. I know. Let's go to the park. Hobo followed. Will there be people there? I'm sure, Cece said, laughing. Hobo followed reluctantly as he pulled his hood closer to his face. The scruffy dog picked up a bone and chased after them. When the two arrived at the park, it was full of people running around, playing football, throwing frisbees, and playing on the equipment. The two walked over to the swings. So what's your story? Cece asked. I don't have a story. I have a purpose. It's all I know, Hobo answered. Well, what is this purpose you keep mentioning? Cece pried. Hobo looked at the ground and kicked a rock. I have duties I take care of to prevent something bad from happening. What do you mean? Cece asked. Hobo shook his head. Don't want to talk about it. As the two talked, Cece looked up and noticed most of the people had left the park and it was very quiet. The people that were still there were by themselves. Hobo looked around. I need to be going. Wait, do I get to see you tomorrow? Cece asked. No, Hobo said. There's something I have to do. Okay, how about the next day? She smiled as she asked. Hobo reached out and touched her blonde hair. If that's what you'd like. She took his hand and touched it to her face. It is. 2 days passed, and just as he had said, he met with her. They decided to go for a walk to a nearby lake. The two spent several days like this, just talking, laughing, and enjoying being in one another's company. Time seemed to slip away as the two grew closer and closer. One day after school, when she arrived at their usual meeting place, Hobo revealed he had a surprise for her. He held out his hand and she took it. Hey, wait, before we go, I want to give you this, Cece said as she reached into her pocket. Valentine's Day is coming up, and I was wondering if you'd like to be my Valentine. She handed Hobo a small envelope. What is a Valentine? Hobo asked as he opened the envelope. It was a hand-drawn picture of 2 hearts intertwined with the words "Be mine" above the drawing and "If you value your heart, you'll give it to me" written below. A Valentine is someone you care for and would be willing to give your heart to because you know they'll protect it and care for you, she explained. So, on Valentine's Day, you want me to give you my heart? Hobo asked. Cece smiled. Well, only if you want to, you know. Deal, Hobo said as he hugged Cece. Now let's get going. You're gonna love this. The two headed out towards the country, near the outskirts of town, and the small dog followed, as always, wagging his tail. After walking a while in the woods, Hobo made Cece close her eyes. He took her hand and led the way for a few minutes, then stopped. "Okay, look," he said with joy. When she opened her eyes, she saw before her a massive tree on a hill. It was very old, and its many branches twisted and curved in dozens of different directions. The leaves were lush and bright, unlike all the trees surrounding it. The trunk was easily 15 feet in diameter, and it was unlike any tree she had ever seen. The roots were more exposed than normal trees. They seemed to come from different points in the ground, almost like the tree was composed of several different trees whose roots had grown together and had become entangled and formed one massive tree. "It's so beautiful. It seems very special, almost magical," Cece said in wonderment as she gazed at the tree. Cece stepped closer to Hobo. She lifted his hood off his head and ran her fingers through his hair. His eyes widened as she moved in closer to kiss him. He pulled away. "What's wrong? Haven't you ever kissed a girl before?" Cece asked as she smiled. "No," Hobo replied. "Can I be your first?" she asked. Hobo nodded his head. He moved closer. Hobo embraced her and she kissed him. After the kiss, Hobo gathered himself and pointed to the tree. "This is my purpose. Bring nourishment to the tree." As Hobo spoke, the scruffy dog ran towards the tree and disappeared into the extravagant root system. "Your purpose?" she asked with a puzzled look. "Yes, I live here and take care of the tree," Hobo replied. "Then why are you always in the alley?" Cece asked. "I wait there to gather what the tree requires," Hobo said sharply. "So you actually live in a tree?" she inquired. "Yes," he answered. "I want to see your home," she asked, walking closer to the tree. Hobo shook his head. "No, not yet. You're not ready for that." "Can I touch the tree?" Cece asked, with an inquisitive tone as she reached her hand out. Hobo turned to her with a scowl and grabbed her hand away from the tree. "No, you must not touch it. You are not prepared for what it will show you." Cece became nervous. "Well, it's getting dark and I should be heading home." Hobo took her hand. "Very well, I will walk you back to town." As the two approached the small town, they met a group of people who were walking on the edge of the woods with flashlights. The group neared the couple. "Cece, is that you?" a voice called out. "Yes," Cece replied. "It's Elizabeth. Where the hell have you been?" Cece's friend asked frantically. Cece stumbled for words as Hobo backed out of the light and into the shadows. I've been with my friend. You've been avoiding us at school and too preoccupied to speak to your friends. Do you realise that Brittany has been missing for weeks? And now Glenn's gone missing too?" Elizabeth shouted. "What? Are you serious? What do you mean they're missing?" She looked in the trees and shadows and couldn't see Hobo. Her head became heavy. She could barely stand as she reached out for her friend to hold her up before she fell. "Come on, you can stay at my house tonight," Elizabeth said. "Yeah, okay," Cece replied. The two spent the next day catching up and posting flyers to help in the search for Brittany and Glenn. As they returned to Elizabeth's house in the afternoon, Cece became dizzy and ill again. "I think I'm going to lie down for a while, if that's okay," Cece said as her head spun. "Yeah, sure. Crash in my room," Elizabeth said. "Hey, don't let me sleep too long. I need to go into town and meet up with someone," Cece said as she headed upstairs. Yeah, lover boy, I'm sure," Elizabeth said as she rolled her eyes. Later, Cece woke up in a cold sweat. She frantically looked outside. It was night time. "Oh no! No! She got up and ran into Elizabeth's living room. Elizabeth was lying on the couch, asleep. Cece shook Elizabeth. "Hey, wake up, what time is it?" "Hey, chill out, I don't know, look at my phone," Elizabeth said, half asleep. Cece fumbled around in the dark to find her phone. It was 11:34. Oh no! I need to go find him, Cece said, starting to tremble. Hey, look, whoever this guy is, he's no good for you. You've been slacking at school when you're there. Your parents are worried. Only God knows what happened to Brittany and Glenn, and you didn't even care. You've totally lost yourself because of some guy. Spend a little time away from him and see how you feel, Elizabeth scolded. Cece hung her head. Yeah, I guess you're right. Guess I got a little carried away. As the days passed, Cece attended school and hung out with her friends, Elizabeth repeatedly bugging her about a boy named Jim that had a crush on her. Cece finally gave in and said she would go on a date with Jim if Elizabeth and her boyfriend joined them. The day of the date came. She met her friends at a local restaurant. Jim seemed nice enough, kind of a jock, and a little more aggressive than guys she had gone on dates with before. Things went well enough. When they went outside to leave, Jim offered to give her a ride home. She didn't feel comfortable with it and asked Elizabeth and her boyfriend Mike to give her a ride home. The next day at school, Cece opened her locker and a piece of paper fell out. She picked it up and looked at it. It was the Valentine she had made for Hobo. When she touched it, flashes of Hobo and memories of time spent with him ran through her mind. She started to panic and her palms became sweaty. She looked around frantically. How did it get there, she wondered. Right then, Elizabeth walked up. Hey, you okay? Elizabeth asked. You look like you've seen a ghost. Yeah, I just need to let loose a little. I'm stressing, Cece said as she rubbed her forehead. Over that guy? Elizabeth asked. You need to quit worrying about that guy. He seems a little creepy anyway. It's Friday night and my parents are out of town. I bet Mike can get some booze and we can invite Jim over. How's that sound? Cece giggled and nodded her head. Let's do it. Later that night, the four met at Elizabeth's house. Her parents left some cash for pizza. They'd had a few beers when Mike suggested a game of truth or dare. A beer or two later, Cece had loosened up, and when she was dared to make out with Jim, it didn't seem like such a bad idea. Jim led her upstairs, where they started making out on Elizabeth's bed. As Jim ran his hand up Cece's shirt, a dog began barking outside. Jesus Christ, what's with Elizabeth's damn dog? Jim sighed. Elizabeth doesn't have a dog, Cece replied, as she peered out the window. A chill ran down her spine as she saw the little scruffy dog that always accompanied Hobo jumping about and barking. Cece ran downstairs and opened the door. She walked around the side of the house and the dog was gone. She scanned the yard and street and saw nothing. She went back inside and told Elizabeth they needed to call it a night. Ah, come on, stay a little while longer, Jim begged. No, I need to get going, Cece said. All right. Need me to give you a ride home? Jim offered. Are you okay to drive? She asked. Yeah, I'm fine. I do it all the time, Jim replied with a cocky smile. All right then, let's go, Cece shrugged. On the drive home, Jim was paying more attention to Cece than the road. Grabbed at her thigh. Keep your eyes on the road, she yelled as she pushed his hand away. Jim looked back at the road just in time to swerve and miss a parked car. Shaken, Cece said, That's it. Pull over. I'll walk the rest of the way home. Jim locked the brakes. Fine. Be a bitch about it. Cece got out of the car and slammed the door. What an asshole. Jim sped off and she began to walk the rest of the way home. She pulled her jacket closer as the cold night air nipped at her cheeks. A few houses from home, she heard rustling in the leaves behind her. She quickened her pace and she looked over her shoulder. Maybe she'd been watching too many scary movies, but it felt like someone was watching her. She reached home and quickly unlocked the door and slipped inside. Breathing heavily, she locked the door behind her. She felt a hand brush across her shoulder. Everything okay, honey? Her dad asked as she jumped. Yeah, Dad, just a long night. I'm off to bed, she said as she shook her head. The next morning, Cece was awakened by Elizabeth plopping down on her bed. Happy Valentine's Day, she said annoyingly. Cece peeked out from underneath her blankets. What time is it? Time to get your ass up. We're going shopping. We have to get outfits for tonight. We're going to the movies with the guys, Elizabeth shouted. I'm not going if Jim is going to be there. He almost got us killed last night. I don't want to be around him, Cece said. Oh, stop. He was just drunk. Get over it, Elizabeth pleaded. The girls got to the mall. As they went from store to store, Elizabeth started to notice how melancholy everyone seemed. Shouldn't everyone be in a better mood? It's Valentine's Day. Jeez, Elizabeth said, looking around her. Yeah, I noticed that too, Cece said as she scanned the crowd. The two finished their shopping and headed to the parking garage. Elizabeth opened the trunk and placed their bags inside as she carried on about the plans for the night. Mid-sentence, Elizabeth stopped talking. Cece asked her what was wrong and turned to look at her. Elizabeth stood still, staring at the ground as she began to sob. Hey, what's wrong? Cece asked as she grabbed her hand. Elizabeth's hand felt cold and her eyes were fixed to the ground. She was completely unresponsive. She just stood there sobbing. Just then, Cece felt something touch her leg. She looked down and saw the small, scruffy dog with a bone in its mouth. She quickly looked up and Hobo was standing there. Have you been following me? She asked. I sent him to watch over you, Hobo nodded toward the dog. I don't need to be watched over. What's wrong with Elizabeth? Are you doing this to her? Cece said, becoming irritated. I don't mean to. I told you, everyone is sad, Hobo said as his shoulders sank. You need to go, Cece shouted. She pushed Hobo away. It's your Valentine's Day. I thought I would give you my heart, Hobo asked. No, not anymore. You're not like me. You can't be with me. You need to go, Cece implored as she began to cry. Hobo turned and walked away. The dog followed. As the pair exited out of sight, Cece noticed the dog had left its bone. Upon closer inspection, the bone appeared to have fresh blood on it. As Cece knelt down to get a closer look, Elizabeth startled her. What the hell is that? Are you ready to go or what? Cece stood up and examined Elizabeth's face. Are you okay? Yeah, why wouldn't I be okay? Elizabeth asked as she chuckled and closed the trunk. Let's go. Yeah, okay. Cece got into the car and glanced around one last time. Later that night, the girls arrived at the movie theatre to catch the movie with Mike and Jim. As the girls pulled in, Cece saw the guys standing next to Jim's car. As Cece exited the car, Jim placed his hand on her shoulder. You okay? Sorry about last night. I shouldn't have been driving. It was stupid. Cece nodded her head. Well, at least he apologized, she thought to herself. The group went to see some cheesy horror movie. She sat with Jim. He was being a creep and kept trying to make out. She repeatedly denied his advances. After the movie ended, Elizabeth and Mike walked over to Cece and Jim. Hey Jim, can you give Cece a ride home? We've got other plans, and not enough room in the car, Elizabeth winked. Hey guys, no, can't I just ride with you and you can drop me off at my place? Cece pleaded. Nope, Jim's a big boy, he can handle you, Elizabeth skipped off. Jim chuckled. Hey, come on, I'm not that bad. Cece rolled her eyes. Please just take me home. Jim opened the car door. Ladies first. Cece reluctantly got in the car. She didn't talk much as they travelled along. She noticed that they had missed her turn. Jim had driven them to the park near Cece's neighbourhood. He parked the car and turned off the lights. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you need to take me home, Cece said in disgust. Ah, come on, just one kiss. You didn't have a problem with it the other night, Jim said with a sinister grin. As he leaned near her, Cece slapped Jim in the face and got out of the car and started to run. He chased after her, caught up to her and tackled her. She started to scream. Jim struck her repeatedly and told her to shut up. Her lip and nose started to bleed. He then ripped her shirt and pawed and groped at her body. She closed her eyes in terror as she frantically tried to fight him off. She heard a loud crack. Jim had stopped. She opened her eyes and saw Jim lying on the ground and a tall, lanky figure standing over her. He took his hoodie off and put it on her. Her vision was blurry, eyes swollen from being hit. His skin was a dark grey, almost black, and he had a skeletal system on his arms and chest to match the skull on his face. Hobo. He knelt down next to her. She couldn't see clearly what he was doing, but she could hear ripping and tearing of flesh and the horrible sound of blood splattering. She pulled herself to her knees and called out, "Hobo?" He reached out and handed her something. Took it. She then realised it was his still beating heart pulsating in her hands. She looked at him. He placed his hands on either side of her face, tilted her head up and said, "I value my heart. You can keep it. Don't need it anymore," and kissed her on the forehead. He passed out. I will do the song after I've read this story, Scott, okay? And I will do that as well, Reaper, for you. Let me finish this one story and I will do those for you. Hello, Ducky. Cece woke up in her bed. She got up and went to the mirror. She had no injuries. She looked herself over and could see no damage from the night before. What had happened? Was she dreaming? She walked downstairs. Her mother was cooking breakfast and her father was reading the paper. "Mom? Dad?" she asked. Her dad looked over. "Hey you, how was last night?" "What do you mean?" Cece asked. "Well, Elizabeth's mom called this morning. Apparently she didn't make it home last night after she dropped you off, and we saw on the news that some more kids were missing. Didn't know if you knew anything about it. We figured it was just kids being kids. You don't know anything, do you?" he asked, looking up from his paper. No," Cece replied. Cece's heart sank. She ran upstairs and started looking through her room, in her closet, in her drawers. She sat down on her bed. Then she heard it thump, 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 thump. She looked under her bed. There was Hobo's hoodie. She pulled it out from underneath her bed and unfolded it. Inside was Hobo's heart, still beating. "Oh no," she thought. "Hobo, what's happened? I need to find him." She folded the hoodie back up, put on some shoes and ran downstairs. She told her parents she was going to check on Elizabeth and she'd be home soon. Carrying the hoodie, she ran across town towards the woods. The wind picked up and it started to rain. She got near the spot where Hobo had made her close her eyes. She began to call out for him. "Hobo? Hobo!" It was raining hard now. She looked all around. She saw Hobo's dog running through the woods. She called out to him. He looked up and saw her and darted over and began licking her. He was covered in blood. She fell to her knees. "Oh no! Hobo's hurt. Take me to him." The scruffy dog jumped and twirled around. Cece got to her feet and followed the little dog to the tree. The tree was no longer vibrant and full of colour. It was black and looked like it was dying. All the leaves had fallen off and the limbs were lifeless and low-hanging. The dog went around to the back of the hill. Cece could see an opening. She ducked down and started to walk in. She stumbled and reached out to grab the roots to break her fall. When she touched the tree, her heart was filled with great sorrow. She saw flashes in her mind of faces upon faces of lifeless people, dead people. Then 6 faces appeared, horrible faces, twisted and demonic. She managed to get back to her knees and crawl into the hole. It was a circular room. It was dimly lit by 6 braziers. The flames in the braziers were black and purple, unlike any fire Cece had seen before. There were bones strung across the ground. The ground itself was pooled with blood. She frantically looked around and saw Brittany, Glenn, Jim, Elizabeth and Mike entangled in the roots. She screamed and ran towards her friends. When she approached, she retched as she realised it was far too late. It was like the roots had come to life and were squeezing their bodies. Bones were crackling and breaking. Their innards were spilling forth. The small dog was ripping into an opening on Elizabeth's chest. He pulled a bone loose and began to shake it about like a toy as he bounced across the room. Long, stringy roots hung down above each of Cece's friends. Their hearts had been removed and now hung above them, intertwined in the roots. It looked like the tree was almost feeding off the hearts, absorbing the life of each soul into the tree. There was a sixth cluster of roots, with no body and no heart. Next to the empty cluster of roots lay Hobo. He lay lifeless and still. Cece crawled through the horrors and carnage to get to him. She rolled him over. His chest was torn open, and there was a gaping wound where he had removed his heart. His hands fluttered open and met hers. He blinked, then his eyes got wider. "Why?" he asked. Cece began to cry. "Why what? Why did you kill my friends? How could you do this? You're a monster!" she screamed. Hobo struggling for life. "I saved you, protected you from these people. I told you not to touch the tree. You were special. Shouldn't have brought my heart here. Failed my purpose." Cece pounded on Hobo's chest. "What purpose? Murdering people? Destroying lives?" Cryptic chanting in a foreign tongue began echoing from the walls. "How men passi, lemtonen map remesi. How men passi, lemtonen map remesi. How men passi, lemtonen map remesi." The voices called repeatedly. Hobo cleared his throat as he clung to life. "Must keep the sixth here. With 6 heart, only 5 gathered. Saved you. Didn't get 6. Too late." Cece grabbed the hoodie. "Use your heart. Give them your heart." She unwrapped the hoodie. Hobo's heart was barely beating. It was black and dying. Hobo looked at his heart, and his rage began to build. He looked into Cece's eyes. "I valued it, so I gave it to you. You were supposed to protect it. Now you wish to destroy it?" Cece became enraged. "You murdered my friends." Hobo's arms shot up and palmed Cece's chest. His fingers and thumb penetrated his skin. "Do you value your heart?" he demanded. He squeezed his hand into a fist, ripping her shirt and flesh from her body. She fell to the ground, gasping for air. The chant grew louder. As Hobo rose to his feet, he arched his back and large black feathered wings extended from his body. His eyes glowed fiercely. He used his fists to crush Cece's chest as he struck her repeatedly. He then grabbed a protruding rib bone and ripped it from her body, exposing her chest cavity. She lay motionless as he reached inside of her and removed her heart. The roots from the ceiling extended to receive the heart. Hobo looked up to the roots and then back down at Cece. "No." He then placed Cece's heart into the opening in his own chest. He found a small sliver of bone from the ground and took hair from Cece's head and began to sew himself back together. The small blood-soaked dog whimpered at his side as he forced the crude bone in and out of his flesh. "Don't worry, it'll do for now, though it won't last. It will need to be replaced." When he was done, he patted the dog on the head, walked over to pick up his heart, and placed it on Cece's chest. "You can keep it. I don't need it anymore." He knelt down and kissed her on the forehead one last time. As he stood up, he noticed something lying on the ground beside her. It was the valentine she had made for him. He picked it up and held it to his chest, then placed it in his back pocket. Hobo then turned the 6 braziers over and set the room ablaze. The room was quickly engulfed in flames. The fire burned unnaturally fast, and the purple and black flames reached higher. After a moment, Hobo exited the opening in the hill. As he walked away, 6 skeletal figures composed of black smoke crawled up out the roots and flames, screeching and screaming as they cackled. "At last, we are free." Hobo grinned as he walked away from the tree, burning fiercely despite the rain. That was a good story. Wiggle Buddy. Aww. Nose of Me Spaghetti is only $3.99. a box today. Damn, I'm on sale. Is that what you want me to say in the voice? I can do that. You have a drink. I'll do that one first. Nozomi spaghetti is only $3.99 a box today. Make sure to enter the correct amount. And if I recall, Scott wants Calon Lan. Mind you, Scott, because it's a long song, you get the first verse and the chorus. Because that thing is long. Trust me, I know. You know the drink. That was a long story, man. You got your wiggle on. Y'all ready? Flippin' Welsh, yo. You get the first verse and the chorus of Calon Lan, because it's a mouthful. Eden gofyn bwyd moethus, a'r y bydd na'r belai man, gofyn wyf am galon hapus, calon honest, calon lan. Calon lan yn Llandau ni, ech a hiwr na lili dros, dim ond calon lan all gani, cani'r dydd a cani'r nos. There you go. You're very welcome. I hope you enjoyed that one, Scott. There you go. I did not forget. And I spotted a wild Mr. Grand Ducky as well. How are you? How are you guys? How have you been? Haven't seen you in a while. I saw you yesterday, but that's been too long. Let me move you to the new screen that I made today as we wind down. Yesterday is too long. Exactly. A whole day? A whole day, Lam Lam? I know. A whole day. God. It's like, I haven't seen someone for like a day. It's like that's 24 hours. Even less than that. But I have made a little screen for my stream is ending soon. I made this today, so it's all pretty. You guys can still chat and stuff as well. So you got like your little alerts and then chat and stuff. But I've had a super fun stream. I hope you guys have had a really fun stream too. We are going to be checking out a lovely VTuber today that I've spotted, a lovely vampy lady. Lovely VTuber Vampy Vena. So I hope you guys can give her all the gremlin energy. Yeah, your reading was wonderful. Thank you, Lam Lam. I hope you'll join me for Sunday's stream or pop in at some point because I am doing Welsh folklore on Sunday, so that's going to be super awesome. But please enjoy the little wind down screen I have set up, and please, I appreciate giving all the gremlin chaos to Miss Vampy Vena. Tell them Nozomi sent you. And I will see you all again. Thank you, sweethearts. Take care now. Bye-bye.